On the most patriotic weekend of the year, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series comes to the heartland of America, Kansas City, Kansas. We've reached the halfway point of the season, and the fans continue to show their support for the best racing in NASCAR. It's race number 12 from Kansas Speedway.
As America burns out the candles on another birthday, we pause to reflect on the ingredients that make up our great nation, what it means to be free, and the values we hold close to our hearts. Last weekend, veteran Dennis Setzer vaulted atop the series point standings.
Dennis Setzer.
Halfway into the season, 5 of his fiercest predators are hot on his trail.
Dennis Setzer wants the top spot.
Time for the pretenders to be contenders. Join us in the nation's heartland on this holiday weekend as another exciting step is taken in the run for the 2005 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Championship. The O'Reilly Auto Parts 250 from Kansas Speedway is next.
We celebrate the 4th of July weekend from the Kansas Speedway, and we're in Truck Country, USA. Speed Channel's coverage of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series pre-race show is presented by Craftsman. Cooler than normal. Beginning of July in Kansas, just 81 degrees. When the trucks have come here previously, we've seen it get near 100. The 4 top 10 point standings through 11 races, 8 different drivers have won this season. Setzer and Hamilton both have 2 wins and sit first and second in the points. In 5th, Ricky Craven is the highest ranked driver without a win this season. But back at the top of our points, leader has a chance to win this 3rd race in a row today.
Wrapping up the 2003 and 2004 seasons, Dennis Setzer became all too familiar with standing beneath the championship stage. Enter the 2005 season. Setzer took off to a slower start than most would have predicted. But all that changed 2 weeks ago when Setzer made GM proud, winning in the manufacturer's backyard. The 46 team soon remembered the sweet taste of victory and came back last week in Milwaukee, making it 2 wins in a row. Now Dennis Setzer sits on top of the point standings, a place he hasn't been since October of last year. Dennis Setzer tries to set another record today, making it 3 wins in a row, and only 3 other drivers have done that in the Truck Series so far. Dennis Setzer, you start 12th today. It seemed like last year at Kansas, the bottom groove was the fast way around. What are you finding out this year? What's going to be the fastest way around?
I think the bottom groove's still the best way around. There's some guys moved up last year and got some speed later in the race right there, but they kind of got out of shape, got loose. Some of them crashed up there. We just have to see if that groove comes in today or not.
The Chevrolets have definitely dominated this season, winning 7 of our 11 races. The pressure is now on for our other winless manufacturers.
As we approach the halfway point of the 2005 season, Ford and Toyota have yet to claim their first win. The next 2 tracks may be the best bet for the Blue Oval boys. Roush Racing has dominated Kansas the past 2 years and grabbed a victory for Ford at Kentucky in 2003. John Wood and Carl Edwards won 3 of 4 in dominating fashion. Can Todd Cleaver or Ricky Craven continue the tradition started by their Roush predecessors?
Well, the one thing I can promise you is both of those drivers are well aware of the success that Roush Racing has had so far. Todd Cleaver's still very early in his rookie year, but already a big change at Roush. This week, you and Ricky swapped crew chiefs. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you know, it's Jack's a very smart man, and he sees all the angles, and I think he was realizing that it was time for a change around with the 2 truck teams, and it worked real well for the 6 and the 97 in the Cup Series when they did it a couple years ago, so we're hoping to have the same success. Our Chevrolet T truck has been phenomenal off the truck all weekend, and qualified 3rd, so we're looking to continue Jack's domination of this racetrack.
Okay, go get him today. That is Todd Cleaver. He'll roll off 3rd, guys.
Well, it's a Chamber of Commerce day in Kansas. Trucks are all in line as we await the start of this race in Kansas. Speed Channel's coverage of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series pre-race show is brought to you by Craftsman, celebrating 10 years tough of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. In In celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Truck Series, we present the toughest NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series moments, made possible by Craftsman, the official tools of NASCAR. Moment 14 exemplifies the term teamwork. In 2002 and 2003, the Steve Coulter-owned IWX team captured the Truck Series titles with 2 different drivers. In 2002, Mike Bliss piloted the number 16 Chevrolet to 5 wins en route to the series championship. And then Bliss moved to the Busch Series and insert Travis Kvapil. Kvapil's consistency in Bristol win put him in position at the season finale to capture back-to-back championships for the IWX Chevrolet team. Kvapil outdistanced runner-up Dennis Setzer by just 9 points in 2003. Dennis Setzer sat down for a few minutes with our Ray Dunlap to have a little tailgate talk.
This week's tailgate talk is inside the trailer with Dennis Setzer. Tell me about growing up in a racing family, because your dad raced too.
You know, he carried me around to all these different tracks when I was late model racing. I'd have to leave work on Thursday afternoon or Friday, and Dad and I would pack up and go to Raleigh or somewhere and run a race on Friday night, come back to Asheboro on Saturday night, and even try to find something on Sunday if it was possible. So we did a lot of racing together. My dad was fortunate enough to carry me around and do a lot for me.
What are you going to do when your boy says, Daddy, I want to be a race car driver?
Well, I don't know. You know, I'd help him any way I could on whatever he decides to do. You know, if he'll go to college, I'll probably have him a race car sitting at the house on the weekends when he comes back from college.
When you started in racing, who was your hero? Was there a guy that you looked up to and said, I want to be like him?
You know, I was fortunate enough to be there at Hickory Speedway on Saturday nights. My mother and dad took me there when I was a kid growing up, and I had the Harry Gants and the Tommy Houstons and those cats there. And, man, I was just so impressed with how hard they work and what they did at those tracks. You
and Bobby Labonte were friends racing against each other at Caraway.
We had some good times at Caraway. We ran there in about '87 together.
Anything that's missing right now in your career?
You know, I don't think going to cup racing right now would be the absolute positive deal for me right now. I don't think I could get in the first 5 or top 10 car right now, so I'd rather be in a top 10 truck the way I am and go out and have a chance to win races each week.
Dennis Setzer, definitely the hottest driver in the Craftsman Truck Series up to this point. We take a look back at first half of last season compared to the first half of this season, and you notice that he has led quite a few more laps this year than he did last year and would like to continue that momentum for the remainder of the season. Laps led last year for the second half of the season, 19. So definitely wants to improve upon last year's performance in the second half of the season.
It all started here last year at Kansas City. Dennis started on the pole the very first lap, and he got into trouble, got sideways, took out Jack Sprague, made some contact. He's going to come down the racetrack here, get clipped by another truck. And from that moment on, his season really went downhill. As you saw the graphic, only just a handful of couple top 5 finishes and just a few top 10s, and his season was not the same.
Today, Dennis will have to get by our pole sitter, Bill Lester. He's standing by with Wendy.
The last time Bill Lester sat on the pole was in 2003 at Lowe's Motor Speedway, another 1.5 miles. Bill, you are so fast at these 1.5 mile cookie cutters. What is so unique about them for you?
I just love them. I feel immediately comfortable when I get to a track like this. I guess it's the sweeping corners. It reminds me of my old road racing days. And so when I come to a place right here, it's just like wearing an old pair of shoes. I'm riding in them.
All right, good luck on your pole start today. Let's check in with Ray Dunlap.
Well, thank you, Wendy. I want to talk to Mike Skinner because he's always fast when we start talking about 1.5 mile racetracks, but you haven't had the good finishes. Can you do it today?
Well, we certainly hope so. You know, our performance has been good. Our luck has been a little bad. We're going to try to make our own luck. We did a little different approach this week. Got the truck really, really free. We'll see how it is. We'll know in 20 or 30 laps what we want to do on that first stop.
Okay, good luck, Mike. Rick?
And so the drivers are getting ready to get into their trucks, but before they do that, let's head back down to pit road for today's invocation and national anthem.
And now, will you please welcome the Kansas Speedway Minister, Mark Joseph, as he delivers our invocation.
Let us pray. Father, we praise you for this gorgeous day. We pray protection upon all that is here. We ask you that you be glorified in all that we do. We pray this in your precious holy name. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and welcome Megan Bushell, Miss Kansas 2004, as she sings our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, Megan Bushel.
Great crowd on hand in Kansas. Always a great turnout when the Craftsman Truck Series comes to the heartland.
And I spend my time with the pedal to the metal. Some people live their lives afraid of getting hurt, but I love the curve.
Beautiful day in Kansas. Welcome to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series O'Reilly Auto Parts 250 on Speed Channel. Race 12 of 25 about to take place at this mile-and-a-half speedway we call Kansas Speedway. Hello, everyone. I'm Rick Allen alongside of Phil Parsons, and Hank Parker Jr. joins us. Now, we talked about Dennis Setzer being the hottest driver right now. He had a similar run early in the season last year, but then it fell off, Phil.
Rick, I had a conversation with Bobby Hamilton in the garage area yesterday, and he said last year that when he looked Dennis and his crew in the eyes, he didn't see that sparkle, that he really felt like they had the confidence to sustain the year they were having. And sure enough, his year went south last year. But he said, looking at him in the garage area now, looking in their eyes, he said, I see that spark. He said, I see that sparkle that they're for real and they know what they're doing. He said, don't look for a big fall off this year from Dennis Setzer like we saw last year.
Well, and those woes started right here with his first lap incident that he had with Carl Edwards to start the season. Now, is this a tougher track, Hank, as far as getting your rhythm and getting going on this mile-and-a-half track?
Well, this is a relatively flat racetrack for as fast as it is. I mean, 31 guys broke the track record yesterday in qualifying. As we've seen in the past, it's a multi-groove track. You've got guys racing high and low. We've got a really wide front stretch here, so you're going to see cars 2 or 3 wide getting in the first corner. It's a little cooler, like you said, than years past. Hopefully cooler heads will prevail. We won't see as many caution flags as we saw last year.
Well, and last year, the first caution flag came out on lap number 1. Dennis Setzer got into Carl Edwards. They both had some problems. And then Carl Edwards was able to come back after fixing his truck and actually win that race. And so it doesn't matter, I guess, if you're in the truck series and you have problems early on, you can fight your way back. Let's get this one underway. Let's go down for today's command.
And now, race fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Here to give that command is the owner of Quality Auto Repairs and Used Car Sales, Frank Lafargue.
Start your engines.
The air temperature might not be as hot, but the engines are fired up and the fans are excited for tonight's race.
And it's a black tie, white lines, hazard lights and the warning signs. I want the rush of 100-mile-an-hour love.
What a gorgeous day in Kansas City, Kansas for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. We look at the particulars of this mile-and-a-half track.
Hank, as you mentioned, it's a relatively flat mile-and-a-half track, very, very fast. 15-degree bank in the corner, front stretch a little over 10 degrees, and the backstretch is relatively flat. Front stretch a little bit longer than the backstretch.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's a really wide front stretch, so you're going to see guys stack up 3, sometimes even 4 wide, getting down in the first corner, and that's not going to work.
Take a look at the Craftsman race analysis. 36 trucks will again start this race.
You see the length, 167 laps, 250 miles. Purse is a little bit over $500,000, and the pit window is about 55 to 65 laps for fuel.
Yes, and they are trucks.
That's correct. Very good, Hank. You drove one of these trucks, so
Yes, I did.
you know all about it. Bill Lester grabs his second career pole, and outside of him, a man known for his good starts, Mike Skinner, make up row 1.
What a terrific run for Todd Cleaver inside row number 2 in the 3rd position.
Dennis Setzer, our points leader, starts on the outside of row 6.
See Steve Park, he won the race earlier this year at California. He starts on the outside of row number 7.
Clay Rogers doing a good job with this.
Jimmy Kite doing double duty in Kansas. He'll start on the outside of row 11. He's also running in the IRL race tomorrow.
There's Bobby Hamilton way back in row number 13. Not unusual to see Bobby Hamilton starting way back.
He'll use that outside groove to find his way to the front, won't he?
Rounding out our field of 36, Justin Allgaier and Wayne Edwards. Only 36 trucks showed up in Kansas to run this race, so no one does miss the field. All 36 trucks will be running. We'll be riding along with a few different trucks, one of those being the 75 Spears Manufacturing Chevrolet of David Starr. He'll start in the 13th position.
David Ruderman looking for victory number 1 in Darrell Waltrip's NTN Bearings Toyota. Great truck in practice. End up qualifying 4th and probably the fastest, if not maybe 2nd fastest truck in practice.
Todd Cleaver will start in the 3rd position, so we'll be riding along with him as he has a good look at Bill Lester when he gets ready to take that green flag. Speaking of Bill Lester, he has the possibility for the Craftsman win from the pole award. By winning today's race from the pole position, Bill Lester can win $14,000 for his team as well as his first ever career win. But if he doesn't win from the pole today, then another $2,000 is again added to the prize money. $50,000 has been made available from Craftsman to anyone that can win from the pole. Let's head down for final thoughts and Wendy Venerini.
Kansas Speedway is our typical 1.5 miles, but what makes it unique is that it's a wide track and it's easier to pass here than at other tracks. This groove is sometimes 2, sometimes 3 grooves wide, so it's a little bit easier to pass here at Kansas. I talked to some of the crew chiefs today, and they're looking at different strategies. Some teams may go 2 stops, while other teams may stop as many as 3 times on pit road. We have the tires available to us. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to pit 2 times or 3 times here at Kansas. Ray?
Well, Wendy, let's talk about air temperature a little bit. Of course, it's always hot here at Kansas. But down at track level today, right now, the temperature's about 135, 136 degrees. But way up here where your spoiler is, 45 inches up in the air temperature's only about 85. So we're talking about 40 or 50 degrees difference in air temperature. That means the density down here is much different than up here. So we're going to have a bit of an imbalance on these trucks today. And we're going to hear guys say all day long, my truck is tight, it's tight. Try to free me up a little bit. When the track's hot, you usually think it's going to be loose. Tight will be the word today.
Ray, you're exactly right. We've got maybe some radio communications with David Ruderman. Let's see if we can catch him on the radio. David Ruderman, Phil Parsons, can you hear me? David Ruderman, Phil Parsons, can you hear me?
I think he's got his hand sticking out the window there. Yeah, he's got his hand outside the window.
He's trying to get some cool air in. Let's try it one more time. David Ruderman, Phil Parsons, can you hear me?
Yeah, man, I got you. Go ahead.
All right, buddy, you had a great truck in practice. 3rd, your best career finish. Is this going to be the day that you're going to get victory number 1?
Man, I hope so. We definitely got the truck to do it. Guys at Darrell Waltrip Motorsports done a great job. I mean, we've been good since we got off the trailer here. We just have to race smart, try not to beat ourselves in this deal.
We saw some action last year on the very first lap, David. You're going to be a little careful?
Yeah, we're going to tiptoe off in the corner here a little bit. I mean, crew chief just told me a little while ago, you can't win it on the first lap, but you can dang sure lose it. So we're gonna be careful here, see if we get some laps under our belt, see what we got.
All right, buddy, we're looking at you from the right side. Wave at us, wave at your fans, and have a good ride.
10-4, man, thanks.
Always accommodating.
Definitely. And what other sport can you talk to the the participants or the athletes just before they're about to get into the hardest competition.
Hey, if we can get him to do that under green, we'll really have some.
I'm not sure NASCAR would allow us to talk to a driver under green. I don't think they'd want to do that either. Although some drivers have said they would talk to us under green. Temperature's not too high as of right now, but who's hot in the Craftsman Truck Series? Well, Dennis Setzer, Terry Cook, and Mike Skinner are three of the hottest drivers right now.
And Dennis Setzer is on fire. Obviously, the last two races he won. The race before that in Texas, he finished third. Terrific job by Dennis Setzer. And Terry Cook has really turned this season around. Starting at Charlotte when he finished second, he's had nothing but good runs in that Power Stroke diesel Ford.
Todd Bodine with a team change. Some new things in there for him. I mean, he was with them last year, so not all relatively new, but a new start to the last half of the season.
Johnny Benson, uncharacteristic finishes as of late. Normally we are familiar with him in the top 5, top 10 week in and week out. Well, Bill Lester brings the field to the green flag for the second time in his career. Mike Skinner on the outside, and we are racing in Kansas.
Hopefully we can get through this first turn better than we did last year.
David Rudem jumps to the bottom of the racetrack in front of Todd Cleaver.
Oh, and they stack up behind Jack Sprague.
Most of these trucks are going to be very, very loose when we start this race here. They have to get the trucks so loose in order not to be so tight later on in the race, which means tight is when they lose the front end. They want to be really, really free so they don't get too tight. As you see Mike Skinner battle on the outside.
Bill Lester would have loved to have led the first lap, but as it looks right now, it will be Mike Skinner that will take the first lap. And so our first leader of this race, Mike Skinner, and on the inside, David Rudeman moves up to challenge for second, takes it away from Bill Lester.
See, Jack Sprague moved up a moment ago, got by Todd Cleaver, backed off, getting in turn number 1. Todd Cleaver remains in the 4th position.
Just like Ray was talking about the trucks getting tight later in the race, these guys, just as you were saying, are really starting these trucks really loose, and they have to pretty much tiptoe these first couple of laps just to get through there without spinning out, just because they don't want to be too tight at the end of their run. They're just so loose.
And remember, when we qualify, they are not allowed to touch the trucks again until the start of this race. They'll make a couple adjustments, but they want to qualify, have the truck a little bit loose for qualifying.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, loose is fast, and if you can hang on to it for 2 laps, you're going to be in good shape. But you know, you're allowed to make minimal adjustments. 1 round of wedge in both sides. You can adjust the track bar. So there's a couple little things you can do, but you have to start very, very loose. If you're free, you're not loose enough at the beginning of a run.
Look at Todd Cleaver on the inside, goes onto the apron to try to get by Bill Lester as they work their way side by side through 1 and 2.
That's a very vulnerable position right there. When you get a truck on the inside like that, he loses the air off the spoiler. Todd was able to maintain control. Didn't look like he even bobbled.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Good thing we're not at Daytona with that line.
Right now we have 3 Toyotas up front. If we heard earlier, Toyotas nor Fords have won a race this year. We've got Toyotas 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and a Ford in 4th.
Those 2 manufacturers still seeking their first win in 2005. Now, Hank, you were on this track a year ago when that first lap melee took place. How does that affect your psyche going into this thing?
Well, you know, I mean, obviously when I was in the truck and racing in that race, when that happened, I realized that some of those guys got damaged and probably wasn't going to outrun me. I thought maybe Carl Edwards wouldn't, but he came back and won the race.
Battle for 17th. Terry Cook on the outside, Rick Crawford on the inside. Side-by-side racing continuing around this 1.5-mile tri-oval.
Rick Crawford in 2002 had the dominant truck, led over 120 laps. Something came off the racetrack and knocked the line off the rear, and he lost a gear with just a couple laps to go. One of the big heartbreaks of his career, but always runs well at this racetrack.
Tracy Hines and Matt Crafton just behind them. It's 3 wide as they go down the backstretch.
Some of that wide straightaway stuff we were talking about at the beginning of the race.
Rick Crawford making the move on the outside, trying to hold off Tracy Hines. What's going on with him, Ray?
Well, Rick, I checked with Rick Crawford because I was a little bit surprised they started all the way back in 16th because he has been so good at this racetrack. But he told me that they've got a setup almost exactly the same as Todd Cleaver's in that number 50 Ford. He said, I just can't quite figure out why our truck doesn't respond as well as Cleaver's. He said, but I think it may have something to do with the rear end gear. Of course, they ran around a 400 rear end gear here last year, and then they ran a 389 this weekend. So not a big difference, but Rick says he doesn't have as many RPMs as he used to have, and he thinks he's driving the track the way he used to instead of the way he should. I said, why would Cleaver be good? He said, well, he's a rookie. He doesn't know any better.
And sometimes that's very true. Sometimes, you can learn the wrong way to do things, and things change here. The setups on these trucks have really changed over the last year and a half. They used to run relatively stiff springs in the front and relatively soft springs in the rear. Now they're just the opposite, as we see Dennis Setzer move to the inside of Robert Huffman. Now, Hank, they have very, very light, soft springs in the front and giant springs in the rear.
Well, that's exactly right. And tires are always changing, so things always change, and you have to be able to adapt to those changes.
Dennis Setzer, Robert Huffman side by side. Setzer takes away the spot. He started this race in 12th position. Dennis Setzer now running in 12th. Tuesday nights on Speed Channel, Texas Hardtails. Take a look into the life and twisted times of renowned bike builder Rick Fairless and his custom bike shop, Strokers Dallas. A real-life bike shop and beer joint unlike any other. It's Texas Hardtails. Mostly true, totally unreal. Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Speed Channel. Mike Skinner pulling David Ruderman around this mile-and-a-half track. Two Toyotas looking very dominant at the beginning of this race. We've seen that before.
They've opened up a couple of seconds on our third-place truck of Bill Lester. Got a lot of big gaggle of trucks right there running together. Looks like, is that John Andretti, the 15? That's John Andretti making his first career Craftsman Truck Series start. Back right of your screen in the 15 truck, Billy Ballew's truck. John giving that truck a good ride, running with some awfully good trucks. Johnny Benson always runs well. They're being shown right now in the 22nd, 23rd position, but look for both of those guys to move towards the front.
Well, and I want to say that I'd like to see some of this field move towards the front, because a week ago we saw a dominant performance by Dennis Setzer. He almost lapped the entire field.
Well, I got on to him about that. I said, hey, don't stink up our shows like you did last week, and he apologized and said he would not do it again. So
I'm sure he wouldn't.
I think we're okay with that.
If he got the chance, I bet he would.
Absolutely, in a heartbeat. Ricky Craven, the 99 truck, as Ray touched on it earlier, big changes in the Roush organization. They actually swapped crew chiefs this week. John Monson, who was crew chief for Todd Cleaver, is now Ricky Craven's crew chief. And Mike Bean, who was Ricky Craven's crew chief, is now Todd Cleaver's crew chief. So Jack Roush has had a lot of success doing that before, as you see Ricky Craven's last 3 races. After starting out the year with 7 top 10s in the first 8 races, he's had 3 races outside the top 10. Wendy?
Ricky Craven started this race in 31st, and he's moved up to 23rd, but they weren't surprised on their qualifying run. They were definitely too loose in qualifying, crew chief John Munson told me, but they did find out during that practice session, this is a brand new truck, and they had a little bit of problem with the shock mount. He called it a little bit of a gremlin in that brand new truck. So they spent about 20 minutes during practice fixing that shock mount, which caused them to not be able to get a qualifying run in during practice.
His teammate up front, that's Todd Cleaver, battling for 3rd position with Bill Lester. Again, Lester started on the pole in this race. Todd Cleaver started in 3rd position. He's dropped back to 4th. The man on the move that moved up has been David Ruderman in that number 17.
And Todd Cleaver is very, very good on these fast racetracks. Is with such relative inexperience, he went to California, our 2nd race of the season, with a top 5 run, finished in 4th. So he knows how to get around these high-speed racetracks.
Either that or what Rick Crawford was saying, he either just doesn't know because he hasn't hit the wall yet, and he's just going to drive as hard as he possibly can.
Well, Todd Cleaver knows a little bit about hitting walls and getting upside down. He got upside down our first race of the season, actually in an ARCA car. But with more on Todd Cleaver, Ray Dunlap.
Well, Rick, I talked to him right before we went on the air, and I said, what do you think of this crew chief swap? He said, well, Ricky Craven actually has a big advantage because he's worked with both Mike Beam and John Monson already in his career. So he said he felt like this would be a good chance to at least give it a good try. Having worked with John in the first 11 races of the year, and now a chance to work with Mike Beam, he said he'll be able to get a feel for whether one of those guys understands his driving ability better or not. He said Ricky's already had that advantage of working with both of them.
David Ruderman trying to hold on to the second spot. Rudeman has a little sign on the inside of his dash. Team owner Darrell Waltrip made sure to tell he and Robert Huffman, don't beat yourself, meaning don't make mistakes that would take you out of contention for the win. Wendy, what's going on with David?
Although David Rudeman did not have that great of a weekend in Milwaukee last weekend, the week before that in Michigan, he had a top 10. They brought back the same exact truck that they had in Michigan 2 weeks ago. And David told me today it's one of the best trucks he feels he's ever had. And he definitely feels like he has another good shot at a strong finish today.
Strong finish. He's got a great start going if he can hang on to Mike Skinner. Mike Skinner, again, a dominating performance. We saw him almost dominate Texas.
That's right. David Rudeman just gained 0.4 of a second that lap on Mike Skinner. He's closed up to within a second. He was about almost a second and a half behind. These guys are running around there. You see Todd Cleaver finally gets that third position from Bill Lester. The track record here was a 32:40 something in elapsed time. As Hank mentioned earlier, 31 trucks beat the track record. Well, we're over 20 laps into this race, and they're within 2 or 3 tenths of the fastest trucks of what the old track record was. An incredible pace, and I think a lot of it has to do, Hank, with Goodyear bringing a little bit softer tire this year.
That's exactly right. This tire's been a little bit faster, and it seems like it lasts longer. It's the best of both worlds.
Good battle for the 15th position. That's Ted Musgrave, the one truck. He holds 15th. You see Terry Cook drives in, going to drive underneath him.
Look at how hard Terry Cook comes up on the inside of Ted Musgrave. A great pass. He makes it stick, and he'll take away that position.
And he drove it down in that corner.
There's Clay Rogers in that 65 truck. He has really given that truck a good ride. He's been in it 2 or 3 times. He had a top 10 finish, I think, back in Texas. He finished 8th. He's really given that truck a good time. Regan Smith is the full-time driver, but he ran the Busch race last night at Daytona. That's why Clay is in this truck, doing a great job.
Looks like Ted must be fighting a little bit of a handling issue. He's just falling back a little bit there, but I don't know if he's gotten tightened enough yet. A lot of these guys will start so loose it takes a long time for them to get tightened up.
I know I was talking to Bobby Hamilton, whose truck was extremely loose qualifying, and his people told me, there you see Bobby right there, he's way back right now. He's being shown in the 29th position, battling with the 59 of Robert Presley, but his note said at the beginning of this race that his truck was so loose that he couldn't even drive it last year, ended up finishing second. Ray, what's going on with Bobby?
Well, Phil, you hit it right on the head. That's exactly where he's at the start of today's race, too. It's so loose he can't even drive it. He said, coming off the corner, this thing is the worst I've ever had. That's what he said on the radio. So they're going to have to adjust on that thing for sure. But you're right. We've always seen it happen. As they work on it after a couple of pit stops, Hamilton heads right to the front. But right now, his truck is awful.
See Brendan Gaughan, the 77 truck. He's no stranger to running the outside groove, but Brad Keselowski, the 29, is going to make his pass on him. Going to try to bring Bobby Hamilton with him. A lot of guys are really struggling right now because, again, this is the first time that we've had an impound here, Hank. Last year, you had a little bit of practice. We were able to work on the trucks a little bit, but this is the first impound here in Kansas. All the races this year in the Truck Series are going to be an impound situation where there'll be minimal adjustments, as you mentioned earlier, after qualifying. But right now, a lot of guys are really struggling because Bobby Hamilton, we see him right there running in the 27th position. He's 29 seconds behind the leader. He's just 4 seconds away from being lapped.
Well, you talk about change earlier, just how much change these guys have to be able to adapt to. A couple of years ago, he would be dominating on a track like this. The tires change, the evolution of the springs change, and they're trying to get a hold on it right now.
Riding along with David Rudeman in that NTN Bearings number 17. Wendy, how's he feeling out there?
Well, he's about to get really hot by the end of this race. We know how high the temperatures are in Kansas City on these summer weekends. Unfortunately for David Rudeman, he has no power steering. So it's going to be a little bit of a long day for David Rudeman. His crew chief, Jason Overstreet, just reminded him to keep his cool box running and try to stay as cool as possible in a very hot truck. Obviously, he's going to work that steering wheel a little bit harder with no power steering.
Tough sawing for David Rudeman. The Zephyrhills, Florida native knows how to, I guess, deal with the heat as the heat rises on this Kansas Speedway. It's Mike Skinner out in front of David Rudeman.
Well, Welcome back to Kansas Speedway as pit stops are underway. Our second truck of David Rudiman is in the pits for 4 tires. No adjustment. Remember, folks, he has no power steering, so he's requested a bag of ice to keep him cool throughout this race. Ray?
Mike Skinner is in, Wendy. They decided to take 1 pound out of the right front. They took that air pressure out and then said, no, let's not take a chance of dragging that nose again. Let's put that air pressure back in. Guys with a good stop, Skinner will be coming in first and going out first.
Great pit work by Jeff Hensley and his crew for Mike Skinner. We saw a little bit of a close moment with Todd Cleaver and David Rudiman.
Well, and Phil, I want to touch on that. We'll probably be able to see video of that again, but Todd Cleaver passed David Rudiman going down pit road, and I'm guessing that one of them had to be speeding. I'm guessing that David Rudiman was trying to maintain his speed. This is why we're under our first caution. That's Kelly Sutton getting sideways through 3 and 4.
What a close moment for David Rudiman. She was on the inside of David Rudiman. Close call for Ty Bodine getting by on the inside, but we talked a little while ago when we saw side-by-side battle. You see another look. She's already sideways, but watch the yellow and black truck come by on the inside after Kelly makes her way down to the apron. Watch this right here. What a close call for the 30 of Ty Bodine. But when you have a truck on the inside, he loses air. He or she, in this case, loses air off the spoiler, and that gets him very loose. That's exactly what happened to Kelly Sutton.
Right along with Todd Cleaver. Just in front of him.
That's a tough situation. You really want to hold your brakes when you're going to the outside wall like that, because you know you're going to come back down. And that was very close with Todd Bodine. Very fortunate they didn't have a second collision.
Pit stops took place after our first caution. Mike Skinner was our leader when we went away to break, and now he's sitting second behind Johnny Chapman. Welcome back to the O'Reilly Auto Parts 250 on Speed Channel. We're at Kansas Speedway under caution number 1. And when we were in for our pits just a while ago, I mentioned the close call here.
See the 17 of David Rudiman pull out of his pits. The 50 of Todd Cleaver. It was a very close call, but as we talked about with David Rudiman not having power steering, he can't really wheel that thing, especially at a slow RPM like he was going.
That's exactly right. You can see as he comes out, this is Todd actually, but you can see him going by. He's finally getting to the grass. He wasn't all the way to the grass at the beginning. With all the caster and no power steering, it's very hard to turn those trucks at a low speed.
And the caster is the front end setting. They want to make these trucks really almost turn themselves, but without power steering, it's going to take a lot of physical effort.
Mike Skinner on the outside continues to lead at Kansas. Johnny Chapman came in for a pit stop, and so he relinquished the top spot to Mike Skinner. That's Brendan Gaughan on the inside. And the 77 being shown 1 lap down. He wanted to stay in front of Mike Skinner to be on the lead lap, but if a caution does come out, he'll be the first one to get the free pass.
He wants to remain in that spot ahead of all the other lap down trucks, but he's going to make way, move to the outside, allow Todd Cleaver, who's now running in 3rd position, to get by him on the inside.
Currently 4th is Jack Sprague. 5th is Clay Rogers in the number 65. A great run for that team.
Look at Terry Cook go by on the apron there. A big wad of trucks. He had a lap truck of Justin Allgaier, the 63. He didn't have any room. He went right to the flat of the racetrack.
It's a good thing it's paved down there because those guys are using it.
Battle for the lead. That's David Rudiman. Takes away the top spot from Mike Skinner as they go down the backstretch.
You know what really surprises me is they didn't take the time with Darrell Walter Motorsports to look under the hood to see if there was something they could fix on their power steering. They didn't want to give up the track position. They would probably say, hey, I can hang on to this thing. You keep me up front, I'll keep it there.
167 laps. It will be a workout for him. Wendy?
That's exactly right, Phil. David Rudiman and Jason Overstreet discussed this on the radio when the caution came out, and David was adamant. He said, please don't go under the hood and change this. I want to keep this track position. I can run this race just like it is. So Jason Overstreet just reminded him, buddy, take your time, shake out your arms under cautions, make sure you stay hydrated. It's going to be a long day for David.
He just shook out the back end there. He got really loose. Mike Skinner drove right up behind him, took a little air off his rear spoiler, a big-time wiggle. And if he's riding around here, Hank, without any problems, you know, he's going to be okay without power steering. But if his truck gets sideways, it's going to be hard for him to turn back to the right.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for him to save that with no power steering. I don't know how he's going to be able to do that all day.
Look at this giant group of trucks right here. See, there's a 63 Justin Allgaier. This was moments ago here. This is when we saw Terry Cook drive to the apron of the racetrack to get by him. See him going to corner 3 wide here. Watch this as they come up the corner. There's the lap truck of Kelly Sutton. Watch the yellow hooded truck. See, he's right behind the 63. He said, hey, he's holding me up. I'm passing on the inside.
Craftsman was in that pack, but he was speeding on pit road, and so had to go to the back of the longest line.
Again, these fellows have fresh tires right now. They're running lap times equal to the old track record, which is incredible to pace. But we've seen track records fall week after week in this series.
Dover, I believe, was the start of the breaking of the track records, and it's continued ever since. So if that continues,
even Lowe's Motor Speedway the week before Dover, we saw a bunch of trucks break the track record. It was about 3 miles an hour, 3.5 miles an hour, and then we went to Dover and it was 5.5 miles an hour. What was it here? 7 miles an hour?
Over 7 miles an hour faster for the track record
That
today.
says a lot for the Goodyear tires. I mean, it changed like that to pick those trucks up that much.
There's the 30 of Todd Bodine. Ron Hornaday takes a look to the inside. Look at him right up next to the back of that truck.
Nose to tail, they go by David Rudeman. Rudeman moving backwards now. We talked about how strong he was earlier. Now he has fallen back after that little wiggle that he had as Mike Skinner got up behind him. Skinner still out in front of this pack.
He may have been a little bit on the tight side, and they made an adjustment. Now that adjustment will probably work, but it may not work early on. He must have to burn off some fuel, get the air pressure built up in his tires before that change will take effect and make his truck better.
He's going to have his hands full with no power steering all day like that.
Toyota's running nose to tail. David Rudeman in front of Bill Lester. Those two are running 6th and 7th currently. Out in front, it's Mike Skinner ahead of Todd Cleaver, Jack Sprague, Todd Bodine, and Ron Hornaday. Winston-Ants on Speed Channel. Old school racing is back. Pinks, lose the race, you lose your ride. No points, no money. They're racing for Pink Slips. That's Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, exclusively on Speed Channel. Mike Skinner just in front of Todd Cleaver. The yellow stripe on the back of that number 50. Todd Cleaver, a rookie in this series, trying to get out front. The 17 of David Rudeman was out front, but he had a handful a little while ago.
He had what you call a moment. Yeah. He had a moment. We were watching him. He got a little bit loose right behind Mike Skinner. Watch this now. Watch Mike Skinner pull right up beside him. You see him get sideways and wiggle, and that he has to get out of the throttle, and that just kills his momentum. Then you see Mike Skinner, Todd Cleaver, and Jack Sprague all drive by him. Now let's watch on board.
When you get out of the gas in one of these trucks, like you see him do right here, just had to back squeeze out of the gas, man, it lets all the guys behind you just run you down and go by you, and you're sitting there, you can't do anything about it. It makes you so frustrated.
Watch this view, Hank. Watch up the blue truck out front. Watch that now. You're going to see him. You see him get sideways and wiggle, then he had to get on the throttle. Now the train just drives by, and David Rudeman's already fallen back to the 10th position.
The perspective is difficult because we're looking at this, watching it. They're going 170 miles an hour, and the back end comes out.
We're sitting still.
The 17 truck of David Rudeman is super loose in the center. He said it's nothing but loose conditions on his truck, and I can't even imagine how difficult it is for David Rudeman with no power steering in his truck. Bill and Hank, I'm sure you've experienced that at one point, especially under these hot conditions at Kansas.
What really compounds that is the fact that he doesn't have the power steering, because he's not able to crank that truck back to the right to catch it as easily as he would if he had power steering. But a great battle for the lead. Todd Cleaver, what a terrific job he's doing. Obviously, he won Roush's Race for the Ride last year, and he won the opportunity over a bunch of applicants to get in this truck. He's had a great season so far. They had a big change this week, swapped crew chiefs, and right now it looks like it's really working for Todd Cleaver.
He's driving his heart out. You can see him driving way down in the corner. He is dying to get the lead. He is giving that thing a whale of a ride.
We've seen a lot of different truck lines around the track, probably because of loose or tight conditions. Ray, what have they been talking about?
Well, prior to our last pit stop, Rick, just about everybody was very, very tight. I told you earlier that Bobby Hamilton was extremely loose, but other than that, on the radio, it's been tight, tight, tight. Hornaday had a real bad tight situation. So did Bill Lester. So did Brandon Witt. So did Steve Park. So did Jack Sprague. So all of those guys made adjustments. Some of them pulled spring rubbers. All of them made air pressure and some wedge adjustments down here to try to loosen up the trucks. Well, now, right now on the radio, as I continue to scan these guys, a number of them are saying maybe we went just a little bit too far. Now our trucks are slightly loose coming off. Wendy?
I have the same conditions going on this end of pit road, Ray. Todd Bodine in the 30, he sits fourth. When they did come in on lap 30, they tightened him up with that track bar adjustment when they came in on that pit stop, but he also is complaining he is still too loose at this point. They need to make some more adjustments the next stop.
Well, the truck must be running pretty well right now because he just took third away from Jack Sprague. Todd Bodine on the move toward the front. Mike Skinner's out in front of young Todd Cleaver in that number 50. Oh, we've got a problem. Tracy Hines getting spun around, coming out of turn number 2. He comes to the infield grass, is able to keep the truck going, gets it back out onto the apron, but our second caution of the day has come out, and Tracy Hines is the reason for that. Lap 51. We'll catch you up on all the details. Tracy Hines keeps the truck going. We'll be back for the pit stops when we come back. Welcome back to the O'Reilly Auto Parts 250 at Kansas Speedway. That is David Rudiman in the 17 with the hood up.
Yeah, I think he wants to take the time now. Now that he knows his truck had backed up, he's not fighting for the lead. Let's take the time, see if we can fix this power steering problem, and then we know he's going to be good to go. Hopefully it's just maybe a belt that came off, and they can put another belt on and he can have his power steering. You see somebody go back over the wall for another part. They might even have time to change a power steering pump if they can do it quick enough. Ray, what's going on down there?
Well, a lot of guys coming in just to get a little bit of gas here, Phil, to maybe put themselves into a different sequence than the other drivers that stopped at lap 30. Now, Bobby Hamilton came in, he said, I was getting just a little bit hot on the water temperature, so they wanted to clean off the front grill. They did that. I also saw 75 of David Starr came in, Ted Musgrave, and a whole round of other drivers coming in here, getting a little bit of fuel, maybe just to get on a different sequence.
So numerous drivers wanting to make a few adjustments on their trucks or maybe top off with fuel. Mike Skinner still continues to lead. He actually faked the field out. He went down onto pit road, looked as though he was going to go down pit road, but then before the commitment cone, he decided to jet back out onto the track. We see David Rudiman coming onto the track, making sure he's in front of that pace truck.
Tracy Hines, the 13 truck, spun coming off of turn 2. Let's watch Skinner. This is when they were coming off forward, right when pit road was opening. You see Skinner, he looks like, yeah, I think I'm going to come in the pits here and let me get down in the flat. See Todd Cleaver behind me. I'm waving at him. I'm going to come down pit road and watch him now. Oh, no, maybe not.
Hey, you don't have to have a good poker face when you got a helmet on, you know?
That's right. This is the reason we're under caution. Tracy Hines on lap 51 got spun around. We've seen this many, many times before.
Yeah, he was down the inside of Jimmy Kite, the 06 truck. Same situation as Kelly Sutton. Lost air off the rear spoiler, lost the back end of the truck. Fortunately, made no contact with the wall or another vehicle. There's another look. That's the tail end of it there. He stays in the throttle to keep that truck from backing up into the outside wall. That's what's important, isn't it?
Awesome job. He did a great job. He knew he had lost it. He stayed in the gas. He did a great job. I think he put it in four-wheel drive when he got down there in the grass. It looked like all four was spinning.
They've had a lot of moisture in the Kansas area. When we were flying in, we saw a lot of standing water in the area, but beautiful facility here. Wendy?
David Rudiman, you noticed, came down pit road, and the guys went under the hood on the 17 truck. Unfortunately, that power steering's out. What they did was just go under the hood and evaluate what was going on. They didn't have time to fix anything. They were going to put the hood down, go back around, and come back in and fix it on this caution. But unfortunately, it looks like they're going to run out of time since we're going to be going back under green. Now the 30 truck sits third, Todd Bodine. He did not come in as planned and top off with fuel.
So Todd Bodine playing a little bit of poker as well. They had been talking on the radio that they were going to make a stop, but then stayed out because the rest of the field, more or less in front of them, stayed out.
Well, a few of these guys pitted and came in and got gas. Obviously, we saw the 17. There was a few other guys, but that puts them in a different sequence. If we get a long green flag run right here, man, that's really going to work out and play in their favor. And that we've seen that happen here before.
They've got 23 extra laps of fuel right now, so they could really put the lead trucks that did not pit into a bad position if they have to pit under green, and then the caution comes out before these other trucks that pitted just now came in. We could find a lot of good trucks a lap down.
Great side-by-side racing. Deborah Renshaw on the outside in the number 8. A week ago, we talked about Deborah Renshaw having a problem with her foot. She was involved in a little bit of an accident in Milwaukee, and went to the care center, was checked out, and then was able to get back into that number 8 and race in Milwaukee.
Rick Crawford, one of the trucks that pitted on that most recent caution flag. See Ted Musgrave works his way by Deborah Renshaw. There's the 59, the Edie's Ice Cream Dodge of Robert Presley.
Edie's Ice Cream, we love that.
Yeah.
Especially on a warm day in Kansas City.
We'll be all hanging out at their trailer after the race, looking for some free samples.
There's a 60 truck of Chad Chapman. Chad drove the 30 truck for the most of this year that Todd Bodine is now driving. They had a switch before the Milwaukee race. Todd got out of the 66 truck, which actually closed down, and jumped back in the 30 truck that he won 2 races in last year. Chad Chapman was sitting around, wasn't sure he was going to be racing, and Tony Furr got together with Jeff Weiler, took the remnants of the 66 team, started a brand new team here, number 60, and here they are racing.
So Chad Chapman keeps the job. This is a battle for 4th. That's Ron Hornaday just in front of Jack Sprague. 2 Chevys running nose to tail.
We've never seen those guys running nose to tail in the truck series before, have we?
Very familiar sight. And then side-by-side racing. That's Steve Park on the inside of Bill Lester. And now this is where it gets a little scary when you get somebody on the front. A battle for the lead. That's Todd Bodine taking away the spot from Mike Skinner. And so Todd Bodine gets the top spot.
And he's picking up where he left off last year in that truck. Those guys were so good last year. And I said something earlier about those guys needing to re-gel, I guess, but looks like they've got it figured out in the front of it.
They've got it going right now, looks like. They sure do. Steve Park going to try to make the pass on Bill Lester. That's the 6th position right there. Remember, this is a vault. You don't want to get side by side on the inside, lose air off that spoiler. We see Bill move up the racetrack, give him a little extra room. If he wanted to pull down right beside a Steve Park, that would really take more air off the rear spoiler and could cause a bad situation for both of them. But good heads-up move by Bill Lester.
That's right.
Steve Park takes away the number 6 spot from Bill Lester. Todd Bodine back out in front. The last time Todd Bodine won, it was a 1.5 mile track, and it was Texas a year ago. Can Toyota find the winner's circle in 05? Well, that's up to Todd Bodine right now. Hank, Phil, let's take a closer look at the Premier Division of NASCAR and our Nextel Cup update. Greg Biffle takes over the top spot in the Cup Series.
Yeah, Jimmy Johnson had led the Cup points for a long time. Greg Biffle was able to take over the lead last week. Got a great race coming up tonight. You don't want to miss that on Fox.
Well, up next on Speed Channel, NASCAR This Morning comes to you at a special time from Daytona. Get all the driver stats, trivia, and track information. Our team of experts brings everything from the track to you at home. NASCAR This Morning, special Daytona edition, coming up next, live only on Speed.
I said the race, you don't want to miss that race on Fox. Well, Fox's half of the season actually ended last week, so they're done for the year. That race will be on NBC tonight.
That's right. Your brother might have something to do with that.
He will. He will. Todd Cleaver's taking over the 2nd position from Mike Skinner. He's battling that, trying to break up that Toyota domination we were seeing so far. We've got a Ford now running 2nd.
Well, and the other domination we've talked about is the Chevrolet Dodge domination, because Chevrolet and Dodge have won both races, and now we've got slow truck on the track. Justin Allgaier in the 63.
He's obviously made some contact with somebody with the front of that truck. Caution flag is out.
Now, why is he running on the track, guys? I mean, if you've got problems like that, you don't want to have fluid or anything coming out. So
to his defense, man, you never really know. I mean, you can see his tires rubbing up against his fender. He may have a problem with his steering. He may have just not been able to turn it down. He was working hard to get back off the track. Looked like
trying to collect his thoughts. There's a lot of things going on right now, trying to diagnose where his steering wheel is so he can tell his crew, hey, my steering wheel's still straight, or my steering wheel's off. That means my toe end is off. So there's a lot of damage to that truck, though. It's poked down. Let's see if we can take a look at what happened to Justin Allgaier. He seems right in the middle, same situation. He was right in the middle of a couple trucks. He lost some air off the rear spoiler, and around he went. He made some contact, I think, maybe with the 29 of Brad Keselowski, which was the truck on the inside of him.
Yeah, actually, Brad was coming out. It looked like almost off pit road, and that's when Justin Allgaier went up. It looked like to maybe avoid Brad.
Looked like he was almost all 4 tires on the apron.
Yeah, Brad Keselowski, I think, may have been coming out of the pits. And so he was on the apron coming up onto the track. Justin Allgaier was on his outside.
Yeah, I think we'll probably see the trucks that did not pit the last caution come in this time, because again, we've gone 37 laps since these guys have pitted, so that's well past halfway on a pit stop. So I think you're going to want to see these guys on pit road this time.
The question is, will the 17 stay out and get track position, or will he come in again and work on that power steering?
And if they weren't able to do the work that they wanted to, as Wendy had mentioned earlier, they may be coming in. We'll take a look and see if the 17 does come down pit road. Pretty much all the trucks are making their way down. Wendy.
Yes, Rick, the 17 is going to come in and fix that power steering, but right now our leader, Todd Bodine, is in for 4 tires fuel and 1 turn of wedge in the left rear, which will tighten his truck up. Now, of course, he was complaining about loose conditions all day, but a pretty routine stop on the 30. Let's check in with Ray.
Well, thank you, Wendy. Mike Skinner said a big piece of debris came up and it may have hit the grill or the windshield. I don't see any major damage there, but they will take a rubber out of the left rear, and that's going to take us a little bit of time. Skinner was very tight getting into the corner, and they went up on the track bar here also. So a couple of chassis changes to try to help his Toyota Tundra. He said, I know the pit stop may take us a little bit longer, but we need to find out in the early stage of the race if this is going to fix it.
And here they come off of pit road.
Talk about 3 wide racing off pit road.
That's a traffic jam waiting to happen right there. 4 wide in some places. 4 different drivers have led this race. Mike Skinner, the most laps so far, 57. He's led 4 times during this race. Todd Bodine's been out front, as well as David Rudiman and Johnny Chapman. We'll see if Todd Bodine can hold off the field.
You know, it used to be the teams would use one engine to qualify, then they would pull that engine out and put in their race engine. Well, in order to try to save money, NASCAR decided we'd go with a one-engine rule. But from time to time at the racetrack, you still have problems, and that's when you need Craftsman's engine hoist. This thing has 2 tons of lifting power, which is ample, and it's really easy to use. You just pump it with your foot, and it lifts the engine right out. Now, the biggest problem has always been, what do you do with one of these things after you're done with the engine change? Well, this is really handy, because now you can just lift this up, throw in the pin, and let loose the hydraulics, and as this thing goes down, you'll notice that this thing stores away easily. You could put it in a closet. Now, the other leg lifts up too, and you see the unit becomes really compact.
Welcome back to Kansas Speedway. Robert Presley has taken over the top spot. He did not come in on this most recent round of pit stops. Tracy Hines also stayed out behind him. And then the first one that came in and had work done was the 30 of Todd Bodine.
Yeah, Robert Presley only had about 15 laps. Only has about 15 laps more fuel, or less fuel than the other drivers do. So it's not that bad a problem. But we're getting a report that the 5 of Mike Skinner was nabbed for speeding on pit road, so that will necessitate him restarting this race from the tail end of the longest line. What a horrible break for Mike Skinner, who'd been running up front this entire race. As you mentioned right before we went away to commercial, he had led the majority of this race, but now he's going to restart at the very back of the longest line here. I think the 62 of Steve Park may be in the same situation. He may have been nabbed speeding too. Right now, there's no guesswork. If you're speeding, it shows up in the control tower for NASCAR, and they bust you.
Well, it's hard to fudge that new system. You know, this is something new, and it's easy to get caught speeding on pit road. And we've seen Mike Skinner up front all day. Now we're going to see how good his truck's going to be coming in dirty air. I mean, he's going to be at the back. He's got a lot of trucks to pass, a lot of good trucks to pass.
Well, and we saw Mike Skinner and David Rudiman at the beginning of this race just pull away from everyone. We'll see now if Robert Presley and Tracy Hines can hold off Todd Bodine and Clay Rogers, Todd Cleaver. They're our top 5. Robert Presley out in front since the caution has come out, so he's led 3 laps. Again, the most laps led has been Mike Skinner at 57 laps.
See, Robert Presley's going to make his way down pit road. He is going to stop. He got his 5 points for leading the race, but he is going to relinquish the lead, come down pit road. He's going to be back now in sync with the rest of the trucks on the racetrack. Here comes Mike Skinner down pit road, along with the 62 of Steve Park. They figure they're going to have to start at the tail end of the longest line. They might as well top off with fuel and get a couple extra laps of fuel.
And the question for Robert Presley is, hey, you know, I may have a better strategy with the fuel, but tires are something I'm going to need later in the race, and with these guys with all new tires. Ray?
42.50 in second gear is the RPMs. They told Mike Skinner to do it all the way out. They take a tear off the front windshield. They also give him fuel here. So they pitted on lap 68. He will now have 4 or 5 more laps of fuel here by filling up. So they're trying to turn a very big negative by speeding off pit road into a positive by gaining a little bit of extra gas.
Tracy Hines out in front now.
He was the only other truck besides Robert Presley to stay out. He decided to stay out on the racetrack, and he will lead here as we get ready to restart. But he doesn't have quite as fresh of tires as the rest of the field, so he may be a bit of a sitting duck when the green flag comes out.
And so far into this race, we're not quite to halfway yet, but we have had a few incidents that took us through our third caution. Kelly Sutton and Tracy Hines both involved in those incidents, and now we see Tracy Hines out in front of this field. So sometimes it helps to cause a caution to get in front of the race.
Well, it just depends how much damage you have to give up.
That's true. Carl Edwards won the race last year after having a problem in the first lap. Tracy Hines now in front, but I'm guessing that this track position move is not going to pay off very well once everyone with tires and fuel come by.
Here goes Todd Bodine. He's going to drive by Tracy on the outside. There's a 65, but how about that? Clay Rogers going for the lead here in the Truck Series.
On the inside, Todd Bodine and Clay Rogers. Clay Rogers in the blue number 65 on the inside, Todd Bodine in the 30 on the outside, and here comes Ron Hornaday.
That was a good move by Clay Rogers. The 30 truck, it just has an awesome hot rod right now.
How about that orange truck on the inside? That's John Andretti. We talked about him. He was up in the booth with us not that long ago. Here he is in his first ever Craftsman Truck Series start, and he's driven Billy Ballew's number 15 up into the top 5.
There's 2 Fords running side by side, Terry Cook and Todd Cleaver. Now Cleaver will pull in front of Terry Cook. They set their sights on the 22 of Bill Lester.
Talked to John just before the race, and he said that truck really had a fast steering box. That means you don't have to turn the truck very far, because you see him go for the 4th position on Ricky Craven. I didn't really like it, so we put another steering box on for qualifying, and it turned out to be a bad steering box, so they ended up putting the quick one back on. He said, I'm going to have to get used to it, and I think he has.
Well, and as you mentioned, they went to the back because of that change, and as a driver, I mean, isn't that a little bit scary, getting into a truck that you haven't had that steering box in there? I mean, you just make a quick change and you think, well, I hope it turns right.
You'd rather have that, but see, he put the steering box on that they had taken off originally, the one that was too quick. Just to put a strange steering box on a truck would not be something you would want to do. So he put even though it was too fast, he didn't really like it. He knew what he had. He put it back on and said, I'll get used to it.
These trucks are so different than cars. You know, this is his first truck race. He's raced the cars here, but you can really drive way down in the corner with these trucks, and he's doing a great job because it is something that you do have to adapt to that is a lot different than the cars. It takes a little bit to get that feel. He started in the back. He's done a great job passing all these trucks getting to the front. I would think that he's probably liking that steering box right now.
And that team has had a lot of success. Billy Ballew's number 15 has had some great success this year with Kyle Busch as the driver. Wendy?
John Andretti's been pretty happy with his truck as he sits in the 3rd spot. The last caution on lap 66, they did come in, take 4 tires, but no more adjustments this time around for the 15 truck, because the last time they came in on lap 30, they took 4 rounds out of that truck to tighten him up, so he had super loose conditions at the beginning of the race.
Something's wrong with Mike Skinner. You see how slow he is. You see all the trucks making their way by him. Steve Park just blasted by him a few moments ago. I'm not sure if he got out of shape, lost his momentum. Let's keep an eye on it. Let's see if we can look back at maybe what happened to Mike Skinner, what caused him to lose his momentum. See him, he's down on the inside of Chad Jeff and gets very, very loose. What a great save. That's why Steve Park was able to drive by him and look like 30 miles an hour faster. Now he's trying to get his momentum back. Even though he jumps back in the throttle, he slowed down probably 20 miles an hour, and that's why all those trucks went by him.
That was dirt track racing on a Friday or Saturday night right there. He went through that corner, almost halfway through that corner sideways.
Yeah, he looked good. Scott Bloomquist would be proud of that move. He was up on the cushion setting it up.
Jimmy Spencer trying to take 7th away from Terry Cook. They're side by side, Dodge and Ford battling it out.
Good to see Jimmy Spencer having another good run. He started off the year so great, had a good 2nd place finish at Daytona, was up in the top 2 or 3 in points. The last 6 races, Jimmy has not finished in the top 10. It's time for him to get that ultra wheel Team ASC Dodge back up front, and he's done that now. Got a great run going so far up into the top 10.
He's got the pork producers on the side of that truck as well, trying to propel him toward the front. Side-by-side racing. A couple rookies here. Todd Cleaver on the inside of Clay Rogers.
That's a battle for the 5th position right there. Both these young drivers have a great run going.
Clay doesn't mind going to the outside or the inside. We've seen him on both sides. He just, wherever he finds a hole, he's going to go for it. Didn't look like it paid off for him on the outside right there. But at least he was going for it, you know.
Todd Cleaver's had such a great run this entire race. He's now still in the top 5, been up in the top 5 since the drop of the green flag. You see Jimmy Spencer moves in on the number 65 of Clay Rogers, trying to get up the 6th position from him.
So Todd Bodine out in front of the field. Ron Hornaday, John Andretti, new to the series, running 3rd. Bill Lester is 4th, and Todd Cleaver rounds out our top 5. Todd Bodine out in front of a Chevy. Todd Bodine just in front of Ron Hornaday, Bill Lester, Todd Cleaver, and John Andretti. Side-by-side battle for 10th place. Dennis Setzer and David Rudeman. We've seen David Rudeman back up, battling for a 10th place spot. Wendy?
David Rudeman is back in good shape here on Kansas today. They came in under that caution numerous times and fixed the power steering for David Rudeman. They replaced the reservoir, so they are now creeping back into the top 10.
Todd Cleaver was able to make his way by John Andretti to take over the 4th position. Now he's going to set his sights on the 3rd place truck of Bill Lester. Todd had the fastest lap that lap around this racetrack at a 32.67, just 0.2 of a second slower than the track record prior to this year. You see Dennis Setzer battling with the 17 truck of David Rudeman. That's a great battle. There's Terry Cook. He's in 9th right now. That's a battle for 10th right there. Dennis Setzer on your right, the red truck, and the 17 of David Rudeman.
You can see David trying to set him up, get in the corner, just get his nose under him, but not get all the way side by side, right in the center of the corner where he can power up beside him, coming off the corner, make the pass on the exit instead of being side by side in the center of the corner.
Terry Cook had a moment right there. He's going to be split by Dennis Setzer and David Rudeman.
Terry Cook in that Power Stroke diesel by International. This is actually the 5th anniversary of that sponsorship. They started here 5 years ago at the Kansas Speedway in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, and so they're hopefully celebrating that. They'd love to celebrate a win for not only the sponsor and Terry Cook, but also Ford, who's still looking for that first win in 05.
Terry Cook's got a great run going. You see Dennis Setzer able to get by the 65 of Clay Rogers. He takes over the 8th position. Now David Rudeman looks to the inside. There's Matt Crafton. We haven't talked a great deal about him. He's right behind this battle. You see Terry Cook's last 3 races, and even before that, he had a couple top 5s in Charlotte and Dover. So he's really turned that team around. Rick Gay is crew chief. Done a great job with Terry Cook in that number 10 truck.
Well, you saw him get loose and lose those positions, and that's really, you know, we've talked about it a lot, but it's hard to exactly explain. If you let out of the gas on these trucks, it is just so hard to get your momentum back, just because the big hole in the air that these guys are pushing with the windshields and the big spoilers, it's just tough to keep that momentum going if you have to crack the gas.
These trucks run about 180 top speed as they enter the corner, and they may slow down to about 165 or something like that. If you have to get out of the throttle like Terry Cook did, and some of the Mike Skinner we saw earlier, and you lose 5 or 10 miles an hour, they're still running 165 miles an hour around you, and they just drive on by.
He's got a good truck. He'll stay patient. He can get right back by those guys.
Still side-by-side racing. We see Ricky Craven sticking the nose of the Super Chips number 99 Ford up there. And we talked earlier about Roush's dominance on this track the past 2 years. John Wood won back in 2003. Carl Edwards wins in 2004 on this track. And now they were trying to pass the baton off to a Todd Cleaver or Ricky Craven and see if they can continue that dominance for Roush Racing.
You remember when John Wood won 2 years ago, who finished second that race?
Carl Edwards.
Carl Edwards. They had a 1-2 finish that day.
Side-by-side racing, Rick Crawford and Steve Park, and it looks like Steve Park's going to move to the outside and make that pass. Now, I've seen a lot of trucks running side-by-side where the outside truck has actually been able to hold their position.
They really have. As Hank mentioned at the very top of the show, a multi-groove racetrack. You have more than one groove here, and that's what you love to see on a NASCAR Speedway is where you can race side by side and not have to worry about getting down to the bottom of the racetrack.
Well, it lets you build your RPMs up. You can keep your RPM band up by staying up there, and plus you don't have to worry about getting loose when you're on the inside. You know, if you're on the outside, you're going to be stable, and the guy on the inside is going to be loose.
Dennis Setzer, currently our points leader, out in front of David Rudeman. This is 8th and 9th position. Ray letting us know just past 22 laps.
He's working his way back up there through all his adversity of the day.
It's great to see David Rudeman able to get that truck fixed, or his crew actually get that truck fixed, get his power steering back. He gave up a lot of track position in order to do that, but he's already worked his way well back up into the top 10.
And actually, Ray was talking about the 50 of Todd Cleaver trying to get by the 22. Ray, what's going on with Todd?
Well, Cleaver just saying on the radio, things tightening up on him a little bit right now, Rick, and so they want to make air pressure adjustments for him. And but he was able to move ahead there with Bill Lester. Those guys have been having a pretty good race today. And, you know, I talked to both of those drivers after qualifying when they came to the media center, and they attributed the fact that they're running so well partly to the fact that they got an extra set of tires this weekend. Realize that we always have 4 sets of tires for the whole week. Well, every team had a chance to use another set of tires during practice and then turn those back into Goodyear, and it didn't account against your allotment. And of course, Phil and Hank can add to what the value to this whole thing is, but Cleaver believes that was a big part of why he's run so well here this weekend is the extra practice time.
As Ray mentioned, Todd Cleaver was able to get by Bill Lester, but what we saw earlier this year, when you had a situation where you may need an extra set of tires, people would come to the racetrack and test and then not practice that much. So they would save all 4 sets of their tires for the race, where most of the other fellows would use up a set of tires in practice, and that would only leave them with 3. So NASCAR said, hey, we've got 250 miles here, so this is a relatively long race for the truck series. Let's give them an extra set of tires. It's going to be fair for everybody. When practice is over, as Ray mentioned, they have to turn them back in, and everyone will have 4 sets of tires for the race. So I think it's a heads-up move by Wayne Auden and his bunch to level the playing field.
Todd Bodine out in front. He's led 34 laps at Kansas. Skinner still the most laps led at 57, but Todd Cleaver, the man on the move, he is currently in 3rd. And welcome back to Speed Channel, the O'Reilly Auto Parts 250 for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Race number 12 out in front. It's Todd Bodine and then Germain Toyota. Now, moments ago,
watch this area of the truck right here. You're going to see they have something called a Romeo window. It goes between the back glass and that bar. You're going to see that thing fly out of that truck right there. Todd Bodine lands on the racetrack. I'm not sure if it slid up to the outside wall or maybe made its way down to the apron of the racetrack. But that is very critical to these trucks as far as downforce goes. I've been watching his lap times. He's still been able to maintain a very, very quick pace, but I'm not sure what the long-term ramifications of that, him losing that are. What are they, Wendy, do you know?
Well, I was just talking to Mike Hillman Jr., their crew chief, and they weren't even sure that it had popped out because they never saw it on the track, but he feels like the truck is not going to have any effect because of that.
He certainly has kept up his speed. He's been running right at, if not the fastest truck on the racetrack since that happened. You see Mike Skinner racing with Ricky Craven, the 99 truck. That's a battle for the 14th position.
Working his way back after that penalty of speeding on pit road. So he must have a good truck to be able to pass those guys in dirty air. He's been fast in clean air. Looks like he's fast in traffic as well.
Steve Park is right in front of Mike Skinner in the 13th position. Remember, he got nabbed for speeding on pit road too. It's awfully difficult to overcome those pit road penalties. It's a little bit easier because they have a lot of time left in this race. The later it happens, the less time obviously that you have, and it's harder to overcome.
The easiest place to pass is on pit road.
That's exactly right.
Side by side coming through the tri-oval. That's Ted Musgrave on the outside. We haven't talked a lot about Ted Musgrave this race.
He's right behind the 65 truck of Clay Rogers. He's on the outside of the 13 of Tracy Hines. Remember, Tracy stayed out on this most recent caution flight. He's been able to maintain a top 20 position, but he's being hampered a little bit by the fact that the other drivers have fresher tires than he does.
These tires have got to be worn. It's tough because you get tight. The longer you run, the tighter you get. And in that traffic, he has got to be tight. And it just brings more trucks behind you and just keeps making you tighter.
and you just lose a little bit overall grip. Your truck, as you mentioned, you could get a little bit tighter, but you will lose a little bit overall grip. That means front and rear. So he will not. And the longer you go, the more it's going to show up. So right now, again, obviously he was leading this race on the restart. He's back to the 18th position right now, and he will continue to lose some positions. I would think you see Rick Crawford make his way by the 65 of Clay Rogers. He's going to be just a bit of a victim. Now, what he wants is a caution flag fairly soon so he can get back in sync with these leaders. Remember, most of the leaders have already used 3 sets of tires of the 4 they had ready. So they're only going to be able to put probably 1 more set of tires on these trucks. So, and they had to run about 100 laps from the time that they put the last set on. So they have to really want to split this thing to about 50 laps and 50 laps in order to maximize their tires.
Saw Robert Huffman in the background there. We've seen a lot of guys get sideways. He was pretty sideways up out in the cushion as well as Mike Skinner earlier. So a lot of these guys getting loose here.
3 wide. The man in the middle, Chad Chaffin in that 60.
Yeah, I believe there's a spot open between Johnny Benson and Clay Rogers. I think I'll take that.
That was a power move.
And so out in front of this field, the 30 of Todd Bodine continues to set the pace. Although the question is, will that side window that came off the back of the truck, will that affect the handling of the number 30 truck? His crew's taking a look at maybe putting back that window when he gets back down pit road. Tomorrow on Speed Channel, strap in for Formula One racing, the French Grand Prix. After an historical fiasco at Indy, it's time to get back to the business of racing. Don't miss Formula One French Grand Prix tomorrow live at 7:30 a.m. only on Speed Channel.
There's our leader. Our leader lapping by David Starr. He is getting ready to put and has put some great trucks a lap down. Robert Huffman's already gone down a lap. Chad Chaffin is next on his hit parade. Then Johnny Benson right in front of Chad Chaffin. He's got some Ted Musgrave, Bobby Hamilton within 2 or 3 seconds of going a lap down.
Bobby Hamilton currently second in the points, about to go a lap down to Todd Bodine.
Todd's gotten in a lot of traffic there. It's let Hornaday catch him a little bit, close the gap, what little bit of the large gap that he has, but looks like he's going to get by these guys and have some more clean racetrack.
And early on, we heard from down on pit road, Bobby Hamilton was so loose he could hardly drive that truck. Obviously, they have not fixed it to the point where Bobby's comfortable.
No, without a doubt. You're not going to see Bobby Hamilton fall back as far as he has. He rides around the back at times, but he's not going to be in danger of losing the lap if he's able to do something about it. But great battle right there. There's Jimmy Spencer, the 7th place truck. David Ruderman has run him down, goes down for the 7th position. He's really made a great comeback from his power steering problems earlier.
And they were on pit road probably 6 or 7 times trying to fix that power steering, and so they were always restarting at the back of the field every time we had a restart so far after 3 cautions. And we see Bobby Hamilton running around toward the back of the pack, which is very unfamiliar to be in a position where he's almost ready to be lapped.
So you see him right now currently being shown in the 18th position. He's going to try to make his way by the 10 of Terry Cook. Terry's in the 17th position. There's Tracy Hines and the black hooded truck right behind him. That's our leader, Todd Bodine, coming to put these trucks a lap down.
Todd's just setting a blistering pace. I mean, he's 2 or 3 tenths a lap faster than anyone else out there.
He's lapping some of these great trucks and still maintaining a 3-second lead over Ron Hornaday. Todd Cleaver just inside of 4 seconds behind our leader, Todd Bodine.
Now, why are we seeing dominance? We saw Dennis Setzer dominate a week ago. Now we're seeing Todd Bodine with a very dominant truck, it seems like. How can one truck be that much better than the field?
Well, today there was a lot of ifs. I mean, the impound, obviously they didn't have the opportunity to run a happy hour and be able to adjust on those trucks. So these trucks always get tighter here. You expect a lot of temperature. You expect these trucks to get really tight. Some of these guys make either don't adjust enough or over adjust. We talked about Todd Bodine, who had to make the adjustment during the race because he was too free. Looks like they've made the right calls, and it's just gotten him up front in the clean air, and that is so important on these mile-and-a-half racetracks.
There's our second place. That's our battle for second right now. Todd Cleaver closed right up behind Ron Hornaday. That's a battle for the 2nd position.
Lap truck.
Oh, trouble right in front of him, right in front of him.
Tracy Hines gets spun around again. almost in the exact same position he did last time. He gets it straight back out, keeps going. The caution flag will fly. So it is our 4th caution of the day. Tracy Hines has brought 2 of them out.
And Bobby Hamilton remains on the lead lap. He was the very next truck to get lapped by our leader, Todd Bodine, and got saved by the caution flag.
That's right. That was a good break for him. And we were very fortunate. There wasn't more trucks wrapped up in that incident.
Looked like Tracy was going to back up on the racetrack as those trucks were trying to make their way by.
Now, Terry Cook will more than likely be the recipient of the free pass. He was the first truck scored a lap down, and so he will probably get back up on the lead lap. But I tell you what, they've got to figure something out to be able to hang with Todd Bodine right now.
Well, remember, we had Mike Skinner that dominated the early part of this race get busted for speeding, so we know he has a good truck. We know David Ruderman has a good truck, and he's battling back from his power steering problem. So we may have those trucks able to race them. See another look at, he may have been on the inside of Terry Cook, just like he was earlier, on the inside of another truck, lost air off the spoiler. You see him, got to hold the brakes there, Tracy. Almost slipped right up into Ron Hornaday, who was our 2nd place truck, but fortunately no damage there.
He never missed a beat, kept it going. Very fortunate, you know, we keep talking about these trucks getting tight, and these guys want to be loose.
And you have to keep watching. We were watching from Todd Cleaver's onboard. You see right up ahead of him, saw Tracy on the inside of that Terry Cook truck. You see him slip, you see Todd Cleaver trying to back off there to keep him running into Ron Hornet, and you see Tracy Hines start to come up the racetrack. Fortunately didn't. And here come our leader is on pit road.
Todd Bodine brings the field down pit road. Wendy?
Todd Bodine stops exactly where his team wanted to him. 4 tires, but no adjustments on the 30 truck. They do have a tire rolling down pit road. That is going to be a penalty. It is definitely rolling out on pit road as the crew goes to work on the left-hand side. One of the crew guys ran out there and got it, but we'll see if Nascar, what kind of call they make on that. Ray?
Ron Hornaday is here, Wendy, and they're going to make no adjustments to his truck here. They do clean the windshield off, and the guys come around for 4 tires here, but there's not going to be any kind of wedge or adjustment for Hornaday. He said he got a little bit tighter as the run went long. Good stop for the 6 and the 22 there also.
See the 30 and the 50 racing off pit road there. Todd Bodine able to stay up in front of. I think the fact that his crew guy went back and got that tire before he left the pits, because the rule is you cannot have any equipment on the racetrack side of pit road when you leave the pits. His crew guy was able to get the tire, get it back across the wall before he left the pits, so I don't think that will result in a penalty for Todd Bodine.
A very important pit stop here. You know, obviously we had a much longer green flag run there. That was a very important pit stop.
See if we can take a look at Todd's pit stop here. You see it gets stopped right on the sign. See the guys change the right side tires. That's the right rear tire right there.
The tire changer actually threw the tire toward the wall, but then it turned right and went back out onto the track. Wendy?
Fortunately for them, the 30 team did grab that tire before Todd Bodine left pit road. I spoke to the NASCAR official. That's why he did not get a penalty. I also wanted to tell you the only thing that Todd Bodine requested was a bottle of water. So Todd Bodine sitting pretty right now in today's race.
A couple trucks stayed out when the caution came out. Ron Hornaday being scored currently as our leader as he made his way off pit road before Todd Bodine. So it's Ron Hornaday, Todd Bodine, and Todd Cleaver, 1, 2, 3. This is why we're under our 4th caution of the day at Kansas Speedway as Tracy Hines gets spun around for the 2nd time coming out of turn 2. Welcome back to Kansas Speedway for the O'Reilly Auto Parts 250 in Kansas City, Kansas, the heartland of America. For the 4th of July weekend, the trucks running in front of a great crowd here in Kansas City. We restart on lap 124.
We always have such a great crowd when we get to Kansas City. They sell this place out. Ron Hornaday has our lead. Todd Bodine, who was leading when the caution flag came out, right now is in the 2nd position. Ron Hornaday, the king of the restarts, got a great one. He's got about 3 truck lengths right now over Todd Bodine. Todd Cleaver being shown in 3rd. Jack Sprague in 4th.
A lot of 3 wide action right there in 1 and 2. I mean, that was trouble in the making, but it looks like they got through there. Okay, we'll have to keep our eye on it and see what happens. They're still trying to go 3 wide back there.
There's Todd Cleaver right there. Look at this wad of trucks right here. You see Ted Musgrave go by on the outside, bringing Jimmy Spencer's teammate with him.
John Andretti on the inside.
Somebody seizes Mike Skinner up. Mike Skinner had a good run going. He got seized up a little bit by, looked like Steve Park slowed down a little bit in that corner.
Skinner's going to push him on through. I mean, that's trouble brewing right there.
We noticed that Johnny Benson, when they got ready to restart the race, was on the apron of the racetrack, and he made his way down pit road. Wendy, what happened with Johnny Benson?
Unfortunately for Johnny Benson, the right front stud has broken off, and they're going to pull it behind the wall into the garage and fix that right front stud, hoping to get back out there and gain some laps at the end of the race.
What a horrible break for Johnny Benson. There you see Johnny pulling down pit road there. That team had so much promise. It seemed like he was in the top 10 every race he ran that truck last year. It had a great start to the season going, but unfortunately, situations like this, he got crashed on the first lap at Dover earlier this year. In situations like this, he blew up. It caused the only caution flag in Milwaukee last week. It's going to just kill him in the points.
The only guy that doesn't need it, that's who it always happens to in racing. It seems like the guy that least can afford it is who it happens to.
Sure seems that way. But what a great break this caution flag was for Bobby Hamilton. Was the next truck to get lapped. And actually, Terry Cook had just gotten lapped by our leader, Todd Bodine. He got the free pass. So both of those trucks back on the lead lap with about 40 laps to go.
And when that caution did come out, Todd Bodine was in front of Ron Hornaday by about 3 or 4 seconds, but Hornaday was not gaining on Todd Bodine, but at the same time wasn't losing ground to Todd Bodine. So now we see those two running up front, where Hornaday is our leader and Todd Bodine running in second, and they're running competitively nose to tail.
Ron Hornaday has clean racetrack right now. There's, you see Bobby Hamilton, trouble right in front of him. Tracy
Hines again having problems in that 13. He comes up the track.
He's having a tough day.
5th caution of the day, 3rd for Tracy Hines.
All in the same corner. If I was Tracy, I would want to take a shortcut around turn number 2.
They obviously have something wrong with that truck, and he's just trying his best, and it's just not working out for him today.
Ray?
Hey, Rick, just wanted to add on, you guys were talking about what a good break that was for Hamilton and a few other guys. Also a good break for a number of teams that were going to have to pit in just a handful of laps. The caution came out, they pitted down here at lap 120, but many guys would have already been to pit road right now had we stayed under green. They needed to pit between 127 and 128. That includes guys like Jack Sprague, the number 22 of Bill Lester was going to be heading down pit road, and also the 50 of Todd Cleaver. So all of those guys very thankful for that caution coming out, and also Ted Musgrave. Musgrave was just about to turn on to pit road and come down to get service on his number 1 Mopar Dodge right as the caution came out.
We are under caution number 5 in Kansas, and the reason why, Tracy Hines having problems with turn number 2. The Toyota Spotlight lets us take a closer look at where today's field of Toyota Tundras are currently running. Todd Bodine in 2nd, Rudem in 4th after coming all the way from the back. An amazing run. Bill Lester started on the pole, currently in 6th. If he would finish there, that's his career best for Bill Lester.
Will tie his career best of 6th. He finished at Charlotte earlier, but Mike Skinner, who's had such a good truck here, he did not get off pit road as quickly as he would have liked. He's back in the 11th position, but we know he has a great truck. Let's see if he can work his way into the top 10 and towards the lead of this race.
Well, Skinner, Bodine, both, and Rudeman have all led today, and Bodine and Skinner both shown dominance throughout this race, so they have been really strong.
And Rudeman, before he had his power steering problem, raced to the lead. So we know that he has a good truck. We've got a great field of Toyotas, but we have a Chevrolet leading Ron Hornaday.
Ron Hornaday would love to get his 2nd win of the season and put a little distance between himself and Jack Sprague, who is 2nd in the all-time wins column behind Ron Hornaday. Hornaday with a great start, but Todd Bodine able to stay right with him. They always talk about how good a start Ron Hornaday can get, but Todd Bodine has not fallen off the pace much at all.
He did a good job on that start. He was able to hang with Mr. Restart. That's a good thing there.
You see the 12 of Robert Huffman, that day-glow orange hooded truck right there. You see Ted Musgrave go by on the outside. That is the battle for the first truck 1 lap down. That's desperately they want to be that first truck 1 lap down, so when the caution flag comes out, if it does, they would get the free pass. They're battling for their life right there, Ted Musgrave and Robert Huffman.
Cautions breed cautions.
Yes, and Ted Musgrave has moved ahead of Robert Huffman, so if it does come out now, Ted Musgrave would get the free pass. And that's uncharacteristic to talk about an Ultra Motorsports team or Ted Musgrave looking to get a free pass. Normally, Ted Musgrave is very strong, running up front, and today he finds himself a lap down.
So he's our 3rd place point man. He's only 44 points out of the lead, so it's very, very uncharacteristic, as you mentioned, but sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't. I'm sure they've worked on this truck, they've made it better, but he really needs another caution flag to get back on the lead lap. Another guy that we don't normally talk about being in the back or running with troubles is Ricky Craven. He's currently in 19th. Wendy, what's going on with Ricky?
He's definitely one of our points contenders this year, and he's had trouble today. He was 12th right after that caution, but they had to come back in, which put him back in 19th. He thought he had a tire going flat, but I spoke to John Munsum, his crew chief, and he said all the tires were good, but while they were in, they made a shock adjustment on the right rear.
We saw some of the falling back, and now we see a battle for the top spot. And you see Todd Bodine got loose right there. He was on the inside of Ron Hornaday, got loose, had to check up, almost got into the side of Ron Hornaday.
I don't think I saw him check up any, but let's see if he gets loose. Oh, look at him get loose sideways, completely sideways.
That was a heck of a save.
Well, and there we see why sometimes you just don't run on the inside of trucks when you're going through the corner.
And remember when you lose your momentum, you saw Todd Cleaver drive right by and look at David Ruderman. He's going to try to do the same thing. Todd says, let me look in the mirror and say, I see David Ruderman. I need to keep him behind me till I get back up to speed.
How about that save by Todd Bodine twice? Not once, but twice.
He is trying to catch his breath right now, I guarantee you. Let me just get settled down.
Well, we saw Mike Skinner do this earlier in the race where he was sideways going through the corner.
Watch Todd Bodine right now. He gets completely sideways. He's got his left front tire right on the apron. Almost loses his control. And this is really the 2nd time that he got sideways. He got sideways coming off turn 2, but never backed out of the throttle.
Never backed out the first time. He had to back out right there. That was a great save.
Look at that, on board with Todd Cleaver. We saw him get sideways, and now Cleaver sees the opening, goes right by on the outside.
When you can read the door number from behind him, then you know he's sideways.
Problem, Steve Parkett spun around and hits the wall.
Chris Fontaine, the Ford truck, gets by him. You see a lot of damage to the left side of Steve Park's truck.
Our 6th caution of the day, that happening in turns 1 and 2. Predominantly, all of the cautions have taken place in that area. We'll check on Steve Park when we come back, as the safety crews are now dealing with him in that number 62. Caution 6 for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series at Kansas Speedway. We saw Steve Park climb out of the 62 truck.
Pretty hard contact there for Steve Park. Good sight to see him get out of that truck under his own power. See, if you take a look back at what happened to Steve Park, he was going to drive down to the inside of Rick Crawford. See him battling side by side. As they get down to turn number 1, he gets loose hang even really before he gets down in the corner.
That's exactly right. I mean, as soon as he started to pull on that wheel, it looks like that thing just snapped around hard on him.
Again, we've said it time and time again, when you have a truck on the inside of another truck, you're going to lose some air on the spoiler. Chris Fontaine did a great job. Look, he was all the way up at the top of the racetrack, had to turn that truck hard left,
that was close.
Hard left,
very
maintain
close.
Control, and avoid Steve Park. Good job by Chris Fontaine without very much experience. Ray, what's going on down there?
Well, Phil, I just wanted to add the really bad part about Park being in this crash is this is their brand new truck. It's number 15, and it just came out of the paint shop a couple of days now. Charlie Wilson, the crew chief, told me they've got 2 or 3 new trucks being built and getting ready to come to the shop so they can start putting them together. But just because they've had such bad luck this year, they just have torn up a lot of equipment. And this one, their brand new truck, number 15, in this crash. Hey guys, let me add real quick on Ron Hornaday if I can, if we have just a second. You know, you guys were talking about how well he is running up front there and how much the air seems to matter. You know, I talked to his crew chief, Wally Rogers, today, and here's the thing about this 6 truck. This is actually the physical truck that Kevin Harvick drove at Michigan, and they did some things differently there. Harvick wanted to test it out because it's not their standard setup package, but what they found there was that this truck lets the nose drop down close to the close to the ground better than their standard package does, and that's a really good aerodynamic thing. Harvick said he really liked the truck. He thought it was good enough to put in the fleet for them to run every week, and they brought it here this week, and Hornaday says it is a blast to drive this thing. It handles great in the corners.
Todd Bodine also has a new chassis with him, with 30 led by crew chief Mike Hillman Jr. Now, when he tried to pass Hornaday just a few laps ago, everybody on the team threw their hands up. They were a little bit worried on how Todd handled that. Of course, he handled it like a pro, and he said it definitely is aero sensitive when he tries to get around the leaders.
Let's take another look at it. That was a tremendous save. You see the Allman Brothers band on the hood of that truck.
He was a rambling man.
He was a rambling man right about here when he got down on the inside of Ron Hornaday.
This is what he said. Hey, y'all, watch this. Didn't work out.
That was a big-time save right there.
Ron Hornaday out in front of Todd Cleaver, Todd Bodine, David Rudeman, and Jack Sprague. Star-studded top 5. We're back at Kansas Speedway, the O'Reilly Auto Parts 250. Looks like capacity crowd on hand for race number 12 of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Closing in on the final laps of this race, 167 scheduled. We've completed 141. Coming up next week, we'll be at Kentucky, another 1.5-mile track, and another track where Roush has had a good record at that facility.
Carl Edwards won his first career NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series victory at Kentucky a couple years ago.
Toyota and Ford would definitely like to get their win here at Kansas. This race, they don't want to go another race without getting into that win column, but only one can. So
that's right. I mean, bad thing is there's only going to be one winner. So
that's right.
They both want it.
Somebody will still come out of here without a win.
And we've got a Chevrolet in the lead.
Races since the last one, you see it's 15 since Toyota won, 17 races since Ford's won. 2005, Chevrolet's won 7 times, Dodge 4 times. We've got a Chevrolet up front, a Ford, and then 2 Toyotas back in 3rd and 4th.
Toyotas have had a lot of success early on in the races. We've seen them qualify well, and then one reason or another, we've seen them drop back and not be able to seal the deal and get the win. Today could be that day, though, with Todd Bodine and David Rudeman running 3rd and 4th.
What's interesting is as strong as Todd Bodine was, and as much of the races he led prior to the caution, a couple cautions ago, he was not able to close the deal on Ron Hornaday. So his truck is aero sensitive to the point where he's not able quite to make the pass that he needed to.
Hornaday just had a problem right there, lost the lead. Todd Cleaver just took the lead, and Todd Bodine's in second.
But the restart, King has a bit of a problem on the restart. Now he finds himself in the 3rd position, and we've got a rookie, Todd Cleaver, leading the race in a Ford.
That is something that we don't see very often, Ron Hornaday having a problem. But as you mentioned, Ford and Toyota now have taken over the top 2 spots. We've talked a lot about the fact, and here we're seeing Todd Bodine go to the high side. I think he learned his lesson. I'm not going to run on the inside of someone if I'm going to pass for the lead.
If I had 2 hands full of steering wheel like the last time I was on the inside, I'd want to go around the outside too. Let's see if he can make it work.
Here he goes to the high side. It's Todd Bodine. Todd Cleaver out in front. That's a lap truck of Robert Huffman. But Todd Bodine not able to seal the deal. And here comes Todd Cleaver back on the inside.
He was pretty loose through that corner of the 50 truck there was.
Todd Cleaver's going to be on the inside. He backs off. He says, hey, I've seen this movie. I've driven there into these corners on the inside of somebody. I see how loose they get. I saw Todd Bodine get so loose. Let me back off here and let me try to pass him another way.
Todd Bodine gets out in front. Robert Huffman, actually, he is still on the lead lap. He's just in front of our leader. Todd Bodine would put him a lap down if he gets by him.
We're not exactly sure what happened to Ron Hornaday. Let's see if we can take a look back at this restart. Here's Todd Cleaver. We're riding with him. Here's Ron Hornaday. You see him take off. He looks like everything's okay, and then he just doesn't go. Looks like he doesn't get into high gear or something like that. Todd Cleaver able just to drive right by him. Let's see if we can take a look up top. Looks like he takes off. They usually take off in second gear pretty well. Then he goes to third gear. Looks like when he went to go to third gear, he couldn't find third gear, whatever. He's back up to speed now. He may have lost third gear, went straight to fourth gear, and that's why he lost so much momentum. He's back up to speed now, but he finds himself in third, about a second, and a little bit over a second behind.
I'm sure his truck was better when it was out front. You know, I mean, you got clean air. And
he liked that clean air. Now he's got a rearview mirror full of David Ruderman, the 17 truck, right behind Ron Hornaday.
That's third and fourth. We're on board with David Ruderman, looking ahead to Ron Hornaday. David Ruderman looking to turn his fortunes around today. They've had some unfortunate incidences take place in the 17 truck this year.
Boy, David Ruderman really closed on Ron Hornaday into the straightaway. It made me think like maybe something's going awry with the motor in the 6 truck of Ron Hornaday. David Ruderman closed so fast at the end of the straightaway.
Well, Ruderman definitely deserves a good finish today. He has driven his heart out. I mean, he's had to fight a lot of adversity. He's doing a great job.
Up to third for the NTN Bearings number 17 of David Ruderman. That puts 2 Toyotas and a Ford in the top 3.
Ron Hornaday has fallen back to the 4th position, and he has lost about a half a dozen truck lengths to the 3rd place truck of David Ruderman.
I like the way Ruderman's truck looks. That thing is really sealed off. You can see when he runs around the track that the left front tire is really up in that wheel well. The nose is sealed off all the way through the corners, and that is really good at a place like this. Aerodynamically, you don't want to give up anything, and they've done their homework.
So David Ruderman now in third, sets his sights on Todd Cleaver, and Todd Bodine out in front. Mike Hillman watching on to see if Todd Bodine can claim the win. 7th caution of the day has come out for the O'Reilly Auto Parts 250, and it is because Jack Sprague has had terminal problems.
Tough break for Jack Sprague. Had a great 2nd place run last week to Milwaukee. Won earlier this year at Texas, but unfortunately it's going to be terminal for Jack Sprague. That's him right at the start-finish line on the outside of Matt Kraft, but we got to report there. You see the smoke.
That's not a good sign ever.
Unfortunately, it's going to be the end of Jack Sprague's day, and he's going to relegate him to probably a finishing position back in the 30s, unfortunately.
More than likely, Jack Sprague will end up just ahead of Steve Park, who we have been told has been checked and released from the infield care center. Steve Park currently being shown in 32nd, so probably 31st will be the finishing spot for the 16 of Jack Sprague.
Saw David Starr come in, make some adjustments. He's at the tail end. He's on the lead lap, but towards the back of the pack. Wendy, what went on with David Starr?
Well, I don't know about David Starr because that's racetrack, and maybe he can update you in a second. But I was going to tell you about Todd Bodine. When I talked to him this morning, he told me that his truck was better on long runs. We look at the laps that are left. We have about a 15-lap shootout. But you also look at how many laps are on his tires, about 35 laps. So Hank or Phil, maybe you could talk about how many laps are on the tires if it's really going to matter on a short run. Ray?
Well, Wendy, let me tell you a couple things. Number one, with David Starr, that truck has just been a mess all day today. They have done everything possible. First pit stop, they put a couple of rubbers in the right rear, changed the wedge on both sides. Next time they did the same thing, went down on the track bar, changed air pressure, no response. It just doesn't seem to get any better, whatever they've worked on it. But I also wanted to add on the 50, a Todd Cleaver up front. Running in 2nd place here, they were very disappointed to see Sprague's engine blow up because Cleaver felt like he needed a real long run here and that his truck gets better and better on long runs. Short run is not what they were hoping for.
Let's follow up on what Wendy was talking about. These drivers have about 30, 35 laps on their tires right now. Last year, Bobby Hamilton finished 2nd in this race, and he ran his fastest lap of the entire race inside of 10 laps to go, and he had 25 laps on his tires when he did it. So the Goodyear's brought a great tire. They're not falling off that much. 4 of the top 5 trucks right now have run their fastest laps since lap 125. So these tires are staying good, these trucks are staying fast, and Top Bodine has a truck to beat.
Well, they've got a chance to cool them off. They've had a lot of heat cycles through the cautions with these tires, but the good thing is that everybody that's around them has the exact same amount of laps on those tires. You don't have to worry about anybody coming up there with 4-sticker tires.
Just in front of the field, the pace truck. Randy Kaiser will pull that down pit road. That puts the lead back into the hands of Todd Bodine. Todd Cleaver just behind him. David Rudeman, who struggled with power steering problems early on, back up into the podium position. And so Bodine, Cleaver, and Rudeman are your top three as they restart on lap 153.
Another slow restart for Ron Hornaday. Dennis Setzer looked to the outside because Ron Hornaday took off slow. Ron pulled up to block him, and then Mike Skinner drove by on the inside. So Ron Hornaday is definitely having some problems on the restarts.
Hopefully he won't lead to something that'll knock him out of the race. He'll be able to finish this race.
That allowed Mike Skinner to move up into the fourth position. He got by both Dennis Setzer and Ron Hornaday. Let's see if we can take a look back at what happened right in this restart. Remember, that's Ron Hornaday right there, the black truck. You see the restart here. Watch Dennis Setzer.
Hold on. We got a big accident in turn number 4. Truck upside down. Kelly Sutton having some problems. Getting spun around. Excuse me, not upside down, spun around.
She was definitely upside down. You can see the damage to the roof of that truck. You can see Kelly moving around in the truck.
Another truck also involved back up the track a little bit further. Red flag has come out. They will attend to these two drivers. Talking to Kelly Sutton now in that Team Copaxson 02.
See a lot of fluid on the racetrack there. That's going to take a little while to clean up.
When I first saw it, I was fairly confident that that truck was upside down. I believe once it hit the inside, it actually ended up rolling back over.
Well, it's
this
damaged
looks like Chris
enough.
Fontaine.
It's tough to tell.
I think that's the 4 truck of Chris Fontaine right there. See some debris up on the racetrack. See if we can take a look back, Rick and Hank, at what happened. Looks like the 4 truck gets a little sideways. He might have made a slight bit of contact
with the 10
there. With the 10 of Terry Cook. We see Kelly Sutton probably going to come along here with nowhere to go. You see he made some hard contact with the left front of Chris Fontaine's, and that sent her up into the outside wall, and somehow her truck got upside down. Let's see if we can take another look at it. Watch the 4 truck. Kelly Sutton's going to come along and clip her.
She was out of control a little bit coming in there. You could see that she was just trying to recorrect when she got into that 4.
Yeah, she was sideways. She had lost control coming in. And you can see the radiator leaking there, but you're right, it flipped back over when it hit the apron. And she was lucky to get him in the left front and not in the door there.
Yeah, she's getting out. That's a great sign right there. And the nice thing about these trucks, they're about 8 inches taller than a Busch car or a Cup car. So there's a lot extra headroom there. And obviously Kelly Sutton took a heck of a ride there, but she's walking to the ambulance on her own power. That's great to see.
They will take Kelly Sutton into the infield care center. Check her out and make sure she's okay. We're riding along with David Starr and take another look at this. We saw the 4 of Chris Fontaine get into the wall. That was the smoke in the truck that you saw on the right side as we went by. Let's take one more look of Kelly getting upside down.
There's Chris Fontaine coming off the outside wall. Kelly's going to come along. She tried to turn. She was up high. She tried to turn left, but when she did, she lost control of the truck, and she was actually out of control, as you mentioned, Rick, when she made the hard contact with Chris Fontaine. But the impact is what turned her truck over.
Kind of launched her. She hit right on the tire and just pretty much ramped her right up in the air and flipped over. She was doing a good job to miss that wreck. She was up high, tried to turn low, and he obviously probably didn't have any brakes after hitting the wall that hard. Just was a sitting duck.
So they've got the 4 of Chris Fontaine up on the tow truck, and so they have taken Chris Fontaine and Kelly Sutton to the infield care center. They will check them out, and we will let you know what the results of that are.
Let's see if we can.
Red flag condition right now on Kansas Speedway.
Let's take this opportunity to see if we can talk to Todd Cleaver, our second place truck right here. Todd Cleaver, Phil Parsons, can you hear me? Looks like he was trying to answer us. It looks like he was reaching for his mic button. Todd Cleaver, Phil Parsons, can you hear me?
That's clear.
Bud, you've had a great run. You've been in the top 5 this entire race. You've got going to have probably 10, 12 laps to go when we get this thing restarted. You got anything for the 30 truck for your first win?
Man, I tell you what, if we could get a long green flag around here, yeah. The 50 truck's not so good right off the bat, but it really comes on strong at the end of a long run. But I tell you what, Phil, I'm going to give it everything I got. I want to win real bad. And, you know, this is what better place to do it than here in Kansas.
This is your crew chief, Mike Beam's first time on the box for you. How's he doing?
You know what? I tell you what, Mike Beam is doing a phenomenal job this weekend. This thing's been bad fast since we unloaded it off the truck, and he's just made it better. You know, I've been with him for about a day and a half now. You can see how well we've run in our first time out. Makes me excited for next week and the rest of the season.
All right, buddy, finish this thing off and get a good finish.
Thanks.
Good shot of Mike Beam up there on the left. Let's take a drink of water here. Mike, he's no stranger. He's been around this sport for over 30 years. First time in the Truck Series this year. And did a great job with Ricky Craven. They were up in the top 2 or 3 in the points for a long time. They had a bit of a bad stretch. And Jack Roush said, hey, why don't we shake things up a little bit and swap these crew chiefs? He did that this past week. And Mike Beam's up on the box now for Todd Cleaver. They've got a great run going, and John Monson, who's no stranger, he's won with 5 different drivers in the Craftsman Truck Series. He's with Ricky Craven, and he's been with Ricky before in the Busch Series over the years. So look for good things out of that combination too.
Todd, there's no telling what he's thinking sitting in that truck. I know time is just creeping by for him. He is really wanting to win this race. We've seen him. He's driven so hard today. He's got a fast truck. He's probably thinking, playing it out in his mind, what's going to happen on the start. Just making sure that he knows he's going to get a good start. He's going to try to set him up, know where his strengths are, know where Todd's weaknesses are, and try to take advantage of that. Like he said, he wants a long run, but he wants it bad.
One of Todd's weaknesses right now might be being on the inside in the corner. And so if Todd Cleaver could get on the outside of Todd Bodine, that might spook Bodine a little bit, because he has seen what happens when you get on the inside of another truck going through the corners. We see the damage here of Chris Fontaine's number 4 Dodge truck, and that was just a very, very hard hit that he took after he was spun around and Kelly Sutton got into the left front of that truck.
Yeah, very hard. Kelly Sutton came along, really didn't even hardly have time to back off. And again, you run about 165 miles an hour in these corners, and Chris Fontaine was virtually stopped, just rolling down the racetrack, and Kelly came along and hit him, and it was great to see Kelly Sutton be able to jump out of that truck and walk to the ambulance.
And again, we'll give you updates on both drivers as soon as we hear that from NASCAR. Take another look at why we're under the red flag condition.
We're going to watch. We're looking for the 4 truck of Chris Fontaine. There he is. He's on the inside of Terry Cook. They may have made a slight bit of contact, but you see him sliding along the racetrack. Kelly Sutton comes along, makes incredibly hard contact with the left front of Chris Fontaine's truck. Another view. Kelly's going to come along, and when she makes the contact, it's going to launch her truck upside down, slides along on her roof. Fortunately, again, these trucks have a lot more room up above the driver's head than the cars do.
Tethers hanging onto the wheel assembly on the right front.
Got to the apron, and it turned her back on her wheels. That made it nice.
The only thing that would have been better if she'd have fired it up and drove it on in.
Would have been a little difficult because of that right front just dangling on.
I believe there was a lot of damage there.
Yeah. And so Todd Cleaver looking for his best ever finish. He's got a best of 4th so far in his career. He's done it 2 times, once at California and once at Mansfield this year. Standing by currently with the crew chief for the leader of this race, Todd Bodine, is Mike Hillman Jr., and that's Wendy.
Thanks, Rick. But first, we're going to talk about Todd Bodine in this 30 truck. Remember, the last win he has came last year at Texas in the 30 truck. Well, folks, he's been out of this truck all season long. It's only his 2nd race that Todd Bodine has stepped back into the 30 truck, but this time on the pick spot, it is Mike Hillman Jr., where Mike Hillman Sr. was on it last time. Mike, this could be Toyota's first win of the season. How's the truck? You got enough to hold off Todd Cleaver?
I think we do. We'll all find out here pretty quick. Everybody at Jermaine Arnold Racing's really been working really hard to get us to this point. We've been really good all year. We just need to go ahead and get a finish and hopefully a win the way we need to with this Toyota Tundra.
I just heard Todd Cleaver tell us that he's a little bit worried about this 15-lap shootout because he's better on long runs. And when I spoke to Todd Bodine at the beginning of the day, he said he was better on long runs too. Do you think it's going to make a difference?
I don't think so. I think we got enough laps on our tires that it's kind of like a long run once we get going back here.
All right, thanks. Good luck to you. Ray?
Oh, Andy, let's talk to Mike Beam here. Brand new job this week, man. What's up? You got a different shirt on than you've had the rest of the first part of this year.
Yeah, you know, Jackie changed the teams around, you know, and it's worked out really well. You know, I can't say enough for Todd Cleaver, but that young man, he's just awesome. You know, his feedback and, you know, this Rotel teams we just needed this. So pit crew's been good, but luckily we've been good off the truck. And I just got to thank all the boys at the shop, Bobby Hudson and, you know, Tony Price and all those guys. And, you know, we got some good heat too. You know, motor's awesome, but, you know, it's just exciting. It's exciting to be in the game. And
now this is an altogether different game, though. How big a difference has it been for you to adjust to trucks after racing in Cup?
Well, like in Cup, you could pit every 10 laps for tires. This right here, I keep saying it. Well, I told Phil, I think a couple weeks ago, I said, that's the hardest part of these trucks. I mean, the trucks are so different, but for me, not to mess up on pit road, that's been the biggest challenge. And, you know, but when you run well, you know, it makes it a lot easier. So, like I said, if we don't win today, we've been in the game. But we're going to spray champagne here in a couple of weeks, I guarantee it.
All right, well, it might be today yet here. These guys still in pretty good position yet with a few laps to go.
Remember, those of you tuning in for NASCAR this morning, a special Daytona edition taking place right after this race. So the boys from Daytona will give you an update, preparing you for tonight's Cup race.
We've got another guy that's patiently sitting there waiting for this red flag period to end with David Ruderman. Let's see if we can talk to David. We talked to him early in the race. David Ruderman, Phil Parsons, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
You've had a great truck. You guys have battled back from power steering problems. You're in a good position. You've got just two trucks in front of you. What can you do with them?
I don't know. We're going to give it a shot here, get a little will, and we'll you again. I tell you, these guys have done a phenomenal job on this truck. It's probably the best thing I've ever driven anywhere. Man, I don't know. It takes a couple laps for us to get going here, so we need some green, you know.
All right, David. You're getting ready to get back going now. Have a good one.
Thanks, buddy.
So the trucks are rolling again. And standing by with David's crew chief, is Wendy.
Jason Overstreet had a long day trying to fix that power steering on the 17 truck. Do you have enough to get by Cleaver?
I think we do. I really didn't want to see that last caution because we're better on the long run, just like the 30 and the 50 yard, but we're going to give it all we got.
I can tell Jason's been listening to our TV broadcast during this red flag. What have you said to David? This is obviously could be his best finish of the season.
I just trying to keep him calm. You know, it's been a long day. It was real tiring from the beginning with no power steering. Just trying to keep him calm and stay after it, but he's doing an awesome job.
All right, we'll see what he has in these last few laps, guys.
Well, thank you, Wendy. Just over 10 laps of racing to go of this 167 lap race, and on lap 30 we had our first problem. Kelly Sutton gets spun around. That brought out our first caution flag of 8. Lap 52, Tracy Hines, his first of 3 cautions that have come out because of him.
Lap 67 to 63 truck of Justin Allgaier makes some contact with Brad Keselowski, the 29. And lap number 119, we've got Tracy Hines' second of 3 spins. Fortunately, no contact. Same turn 2 for him.
Lap 137, we saw Steve Park go around. He was on the inside. We've seen that a few times today. Get loose and hard contact in the outside wall.
Lap 154, we saw just our most recent caution flag, which really caused the red flag. Chris Fontaine made a little bit of contact with the 10 of Terry Cook, and Kelly Sutton came along and made some significant contact with her, turned her truck over, and that's why we've been on this most recent caution flag, which resulted in a red flag condition to get the drivers out of their trucks, get the racetrack cleaned up. Now we're set to go for our finish.
Drivers actually stayed in the trucks. They were just stopped on the back stretch. get the drivers in the accident out of the truck,
Right,
is what you were saying.
Give them a little more time to think about it, like we said earlier. David Rudiman, another guy who's thinking about it.
Well, and the butterflies really got to be building up in Todd Cleaver, David Rudiman, two guys that have not won in the Craftsman Truck Series, looking for their first ever win. And then you've got Todd Bodine out there, who's starting his 10th race with Jermaine Arnold, and he's already got 2 wins. So this could be his 3rd win in 10 races with that team.
And more importantly, this is only his 2nd race this year with Jermaine Arnold Motorsports. They had such a good combination. Last year was a big surprise to most of the truck series when they decided not to go back together, and Todd went to another team. But they saw the opportunity. Todd's deal went away, and they saw the opportunity to get back together. They've done that. They went to Milwaukee last week, and they come here to Kansas loaded for bear, and looks like they're going to overcome a 34th place finish last week in Milwaukee with a good strong run, maybe even a win.
It's like they say, you don't know what you got till it's gone. They got it back, didn't they?
That driver right there, Todd Cleaver, would love to get by Todd Bodine on this restart, take over the top spot, and then try to hold off the field to claim his first victory and continue the dominance for Roush.
Remember, we've got to keep an eye on Ron Hornaday. He's in the 5th position. His truck has been really, really off on the restarts. He's got Bill Lester right behind him. Ron's going to try to use up as much racetrack and use his mirror enough to keep Bill Lester behind him, because he knows once he gets going, he's got a good truck, but he's really off on these starts.
Randy Kaiser pulls the pace truck back down pit road. It is all in the hands of Todd Bodine now in the number 30. He takes off when he gets to the red line that was on the wall, and we're back to racing in Kansas. 10 laps to go.
Ron Hornaday had a horrible start. I think whatever problem he had just really magnified itself, and he got passed by a number of trucks, and he's slow up against the wall. He's almost at the very back of the pack.
Problems continuing for Ron Hornaday, but no problems out front for Todd Bodine. He's put about 2 trucks between himself and Todd Cleaver as they make their way through 3 and 4 for the first time.
Todd Bodine has just what he wants to see right now. Clean air, nobody in front of him, nobody affecting the downforce on his truck. He's just got to watch his mirror, keep that 50 truck of Todd Cleaver behind him.
And that most recent red flag that came out, I just wanted to update you. Chris Fontaine has been checked out and released from the infield care center. Kelly Sutton, on the other hand, they checked her out in the infield care center. They've decided to do some more tests on her, so they sent her to a local hospital to have more tests on her, but we did see her walk to the ambulance after that accident.
4 wide coming down the backstretch.
Got
great racing at Kansas.
4-truck breakaway up in the front. The rest of the guys are battling it out.
There they are, 3 wide, making their way through 3 and 4. Out in front still, Todd Bodine, Todd Cleaver, David Rudiman, and Mike Skinner has thrown that number 5 truck into the mix. So we have Toyota, Ford, Toyota. They're looking to seal the deal today. One of them will get a victory.
You can see Todd Cleaver is trying to drive deep in the corner. He's gaining on Todd just a little bit on the entry of the corner. He's pushing as hard as he can, but Bodine is able to pull him on the exit of the corner.
And Hank, this is a racetrack that you can overdrive. You can drive in the corner too hard, and you give up whatever you gain going in the corner, you give up coming off the corner.
Well, he's a young guy. He wants it. He's giving it all he's got.
That time by Todd Cleaver was the fastest truck between Todd Bodine and Todd Cleaver. And so Cleaver now making up some ground on Bodine.
Rick, both of those trucks, the Todd Bodine, our leader, and Todd Cleaver, ran their fastest lap of the race that last time by. 160th lap of the race, they've run their fastest laps of the race.
Nothing like a little pressure, huh? You can see him sliding up. He's getting all he can get right now.
Todd Bodine putting some more distance, so it looks like Bodine may have run quicker lap this time. He sure did. 0.2 of a second faster with 6 laps remaining.
And that's a situation where you overdrive the corner. Todd Cleaver overdrove that time, lost 0.2 of a second to Todd Bodine.
Todd is just getting such a good, from the middle of the corner to the exit, he's getting such a good run off.
Problems in turn number 2. That's David Starr in the Spears Manufacturing number 75. That is going to bring out our 9th caution of the day.
He's got damage on both the left and the right side, so he must have made some contact with another truck, and then looked like he might have made some slide contact with the outside wall. No caution flag.
The flag has not come out, and so I spoke too early. 5 laps to go, and we do not have a caution for the 75 of David Starr.
And I know Todd Bodine is tickled to death that there's not been a caution flag. He wants this race to stay green the rest of the way.
I'm guessing that Todd Cleaver would also like to see it stay green. He said longer runs are good for him.
Ruderman's dropped back a little bit. He probably wanted to see the caution, get another shot at that deal.
Todd Bodine, Todd Cleaver, David Ruderman, Mike Skinner, and Jimmy Spencer, your top 5.
Bill Lester, another great run going, could equal his career best finish as 6th. He's being shown 6th. Dennis Setzer fought back to a top 10 run scoring. So far he's in 7th. There's Bill Lester. Great battle for the 6th position. There's Bill Lester, the 22 and 6th. And there's the 7th place truck of Dennis Setzer, our point leader, the 46.
And he'll hold on to that point lead as Bobby Hamilton has had a tough day today. He's currently in 14th. Todd Bodine goes across the start-finish line. 3 laps of racing to go.
Todd just needs to be smooth and not make any mistakes right here. You can see he's really on the white line. That truck's been hooked up on the bottom.
Oh, problems. Matt Crafton hitting hard into the wall. You see the damage to the front of that truck.
He had worked his way into a top 10 running position. He was running 8th or 9th the last time by, and he's made some hard contact. Remember, this race will not end under caution. We will at least get one attempt at a green-white checker finish.
What were we saying? Those guys didn't want to see a caution? Well, they got it.
Well, and Todd Bodine has shown that he can restart very well. Now, the one thing he'll have to worry about is a mistake. That is one thing you do not want to do, is make a mistake on the restart.
Spinning the tires, missing a go. See if we can take a look at what happened to Matt Crafton. He's on the inside right there of Ted Musgrave. Looked like he may have been coming up the hill, trying to use up the racetrack, maybe even pushing a little bit. Made some contact with Ted Musgrave. That turned him in to the outside wall, made some pretty hard contact.
Musgrave was very fortunate not to get any more damage than what he got.
And we saw Matt Crafton when he came to rest here in the infield grass. He did try to start and keep that truck moving and get it off of the infield grass, but the moisture in the area, I think, was too much for him to get any traction, and so he wasn't able to get that truck moving, and now the safety crews are attending to him in the infield.
Let's see if we can take a look at it again. Watch Matt Crafton. He's on the inside of Ted Musgrave. Ted Musgrave's moving way up the racetrack. Matt Crafton looks like he needed to use some more racetrack to try to clear Ted Musgrave. Unfortunately, was not able to clear him. They made contact. It turned Matt right into the outside wall.
Like you said, he was having a good run. Fortunately, he's walking away from this, but he was just fighting for everything he had there at the end of this race.
So heartbreaking to come down to 2 or 3 laps to go in a race and have a top 10 run go by the wayside like that, especially with a lot of damage to your truck.
That's a tough one to swallow.
Again, this is our 9th caution of the day. Matt Crafton got into the inside of Ted Musgrave, turned into the outside wall, and then came to rest on the grass in the infield. It has been a day of passing and moving. We've had 8 different leaders of this race. Todd Bodine has led the most laps. He will be credited as leading the most laps, get the extra 5 points for that. Mike Skinner led 57 laps of this race. Ron Hornaday was out front. Ron Hornaday has come into the pits now.
He really had nothing to lose. He had fallen back to the very tail end of the lead lap there, so he has really nothing to lose. If they could maybe find out what their problem is, maybe with a carburetor or air cleaner or something like that, and they could get it fixed, he might steal him a couple positions here at the end of the race. Otherwise, we've seen how his restarts have gone the last 3 times. We know he's not going to be a threat to anybody to pass him.
Hands up in the air. Some of the crew members saying, I don't know. Not sure what's going on. Other leaders today, Robert Presley, Todd Cleaver has been out front for 2 laps. Tracy Hines led 2 laps. David Ruderman and Johnny Chapman round out the 8 that have been out in front of the field at one point in time. Now it is Todd Bodine. And this will be officially a green-white checkered attempt at the conclusion of this race. Ray?
Rick, it's time for green-white checkered stats. Today is the 254th race in the series of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, and we've had 51 times where we've gone green-white checkered. Now, Todd Bodine or Todd Cleaver have never been running first or second in an attempt at a green-white checkered. Either of those drivers have not finished first or second or started first or second as we got ready to go green-white checkered.
So you're saying inexperienced then, I believe, is what Ray was.
I was just thinking that's why Ray makes all that money. He can just pull that stuff out of the air and know all that. That's pretty awesome.
Well, the reason that Todd Bodine is out in front is because of today's Mobil 1 move of the race. And it's brought to you by the new Mobil 1 Extended Performance, official motor oil of NASCAR. That's Todd Cleaver on the inside. Bodine decides it's the outside that I will take over the top spot after learning his lesson on the inside of a truck early on where he was sideways trying to get by.
I'll tell you, that was a pretty good move right there, the Mobil 1 move of the race. But when he saved that truck trying to pass our leader, Ron Hornaday, that, to me, that was his move of the race. That saved him a truck and saved him a possible win.
That's right. It saved him a ride on the hook.
Able to put that truck back on the hauler in one piece is definitely a goal of a lot of drivers in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. They say tough trucks, tough racing. Well, there's a lot of bumping and banging when it comes to the Truck Series.
Rick, we're getting ready to finish it. Remember, single file here within the last 10 laps of the race. Going to have 2 laps to decide it.
Todd Bodine brings the field to the green flag. We're back underway. 2 laps to go when they cross the start-finish line.
David Ruderman with a great start right there.
Todd Bodine looked like he got off to a good start, but then it looked like he lost a little momentum. But moved back down to the bottom of the racetrack to keep Todd Cleaver behind him.
Todd Cleaver's just getting tight up behind that 30 truck right there. You can see he tried to make a move there. Just got tight.
It might cost him second position. Look at David Ruderman on the inside.
Here comes Ruderman. Will Cleaver give up the spot? No, they're going to battle side by side for second. Skinner right behind him in fourth. It is Todd Bodine who will come across the start-finish line. Your leader. 1 lap of racing to go.
Look at David Ruderman. Remember, he's on the inside of the racetrack. Todd Cleaver wants to keep him down there, maybe get him loose.
Mike Skinner, another Toyota, is pushing David Ruderman. Hopefully get enough air to get down and pass him on the backstretch.
Down the backstretch they go. Todd Bodine out in front of the field. Just behind him, Todd Cleaver, David Ruderman, Mike Skinner. As they come out of turns 3 and 4, nobody has anything for Todd Bodine. He will come to the start-finish line, the winner of the O'Reilly Auto Parts 250.
Well, I think Toyota broke their losing streak in style. Todd Bodine first, David Ruderman third, Mike Skinner fourth, and Bill Lester career best fifth. 4 Toyotas in the top 5.
That was a good day for them. Skinner almost got Ruderman on the last lap.
Todd Bodine claiming his 3rd career NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series win. And that is his 3rd win with the Jermaine Arnold Racing Team. Mike Hellman Sr., I'm sure, talking to Todd Bodine, letting him know a fabulous job by his driver, and I'm sure they're making comments to each other about, boy, was this a good decision to get Todd Bodine back in the seat for this truck. Coming up next is NASCAR This Morning, but stick around. We'll hear from Todd Bodine in Victory Lane when we come back. Speed Channel's coverage of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series post-race show is presented by Craftsman. Take a look at the points, and you can look on the scroll at the top of the screen. We will show you the unofficial results as we will take a look at the points through 12 races. Dennis Setzer with a 38-point lead on top of Bobby Hamilton. Ted Musgrave holding on to 3rd. Ron Hornaday 4th, and Ricky Craven in 5th. Let's head down to Ray Dunlap.
Well, we want to talk to Todd Cleaver here, getting his career best finish here at Kansas. It was a 4th originally. Today he comes home a 2nd, just finishing up an interview here with MRN Radio. Congratulations, man. That was a great day.
Thanks, man. Chevrolet Tele T-Truck was awesome. You know, I'm so proud of my guys, you know, with the crew chief swap, and not only crew chiefs, but engineers and truck chiefs and, you know, crew guys. And a lot of these guys have had their world tipped upside down this week, and I'm just so proud of them to come back and, you know, respond the way they did and putting such an awesome truck on the track. Just a little short of having enough for Todd.
Okay, congratulations. Todd Cleaver finishes 2nd. Now let's get to Victory Lane with Wendy.
Todd Bodine is ready to climb out of his truck. Finally, the pressure is off for Toyota as they get their first win of 2005. Todd Bodine came over the radio and said it feels like home. This is only his second race back in the 30 truck, and of course your last win came right here in this truck. What an awesome day, and a great save, by the way, around Hornaday.
Yeah, that was close. Ron sucked me around a little aero-wise. The Toyota Tundra was just awesome. I mean, you know, I made a big mistake when I left this team. I ate some crow along the way, but when you have a friend like Mike Hillman and you have that communication, you put all that behind you and you go on and you do what we did today. Great crew, great stops. We had a problem on that last one. Tire got away, but we overcame it, you know, and just an awesome day. I got to say hi to my daughter, Ashlyn. Love you, Pumpkin. Want to say hi to everybody in Pennsylvania, especially Annie. Hi, Annie. And it's just a great day here in Kansas City.
The magic is back with the 30 team. Good job, Todd.
Speed Channel's coverage of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series post-race show is brought to you by Craftsman, celebrating 10 years tough of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series.
This copyrighted telecast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or used in any form without the authorized written consent of NASCAR Broadcasting. NASCAR would like to thank all of our loyal fans for your continued support, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.
Guys are chomping at the bit in Daytona. NASCAR this morning follows right after the conclusion of this broadcast. The fans in Kansas saw a great race today, and they're always great fans that come out for this race.
What a terrific job. Toyota gets their way back in the winner's circle for the top 5 trucks. We had some career best finishes. Todd Cleaver with a career best of 2nd. Bill Lester, a career best finish of 5th. Great job by those guys.
David Ruderman had a strong run, came back from a lot of adversity. Great race. You saw a lot of side-by-side racing today, a lot of fun.
John Andretti comes home in 9th in his first ever Truck Series race, so a great run for him. We saw a lot of cautions coming out, 9 of them to be exact. We do want to say thank you to Rich Russo, our director. This was his final show of the season. He heads off to NFL on Fox, so good luck there. Thanks for joining us, Rich, and thanks to our whole team on Speed Channel, and be sure to join us for Kentucky next week.